So let's call to order the Carroll County Commissioners weekly meeting of May 3rd. You'll join me with the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have a motion to approve the minutes from April 26th.
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the motion, the minutes from April 26th, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain? Wasn't here.
Oh, he wasn't here.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure they're right.
Okay. They were short.
Probably the other here, right in my mouth.
May 3rd. There you go, Mr. Ross.
Good.
Public input? No public input, okay. The first thing on the work session is the camera proposals with Bob Murray.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mr. Robichaud.
Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Cheryl. Last week's Commissioners meeting, we opened bids for the Mountain View security camera expansion. We received one proposal and it came in just under the wire, time-wise, deadline. And the Commissioners decided that it would be best to wait to see if any more came in just under the wire. So we postponed the decision to review these for a week. So, to the best of my knowledge, no other bids came in. I have reviewed the bid that we got from A&B Locksmith. It meets the standards of the RFP that I wrote, and it comes in under budget. They are our existing vendor, and I would ask the Commissioners to approve the contract for $14,799.
You had budgeted $15,000.
We budgeted $15,000, yes.
I read a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor of accepting the bid from A&B Locks for $14,799, signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Can I have some discussion?
Oh, yes, sir, I'm sorry.
Before we take the vote. Bob, why do you think that we only got one bid? I mean, this isn't chicken feed.
No, it's not. It was advertised, I direct solicited some vendors that we've done business with in the past before. You want me to be frank?
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people are getting tired of their tires being kicked. I think this is a perfect case of tire kicking. I think it's right to put things up to bid. I do. But this is a continued. This is a 3-year. This is the 3rd year of a project that we've been doing, and we put it out to bid every single time, and the same people have or have not bid on it. That's a funny way to say it, but the award has been given to A&B 3 years in a row. They've been the lowest bidder 3 years in a row. So,
And because they were the lowest bidder, not the only bidder.
yeah. That's my humble opinion.
I tend to agree with you. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Going forward, do you see the need to do more? future years?
Yeah, yeah. I think we're getting to the point where we're going to have good coverage with cameras, but we may start getting into entrance systems, which we've started on this as well.
Yeah.
I might suggest that when we have ongoing projects that go from budget year to budget year, that we try to consolidate that into a plan that may be divvied up. That way you pick someone that you stay with. You don't have to go through this process knowing that you're probably going to be winnowed down to one anyways. It's better to design your whole system. Not that you're going to build it in 1 year, but design your whole system. And then pick a contractor that you can work with. I think another example is that might be coming our way, Commissioners, is the web design. We have a vendor who has performed wonderfully, and I think if we were to take an example like that, you got ongoing stuff, so you pick someone that you can work with. It's not uncommon to do that, and that would get us away from bidding every year, knowing that we're only going to get one bid and having it feel like I don't know, we're just jumping through the hoops to satisfy a policy.
I agree that we should have some long-term plans about a lot of these things that we can see in the future are going to keep improving. Yes, Dave?
Well, I agree with Mark, but there is a downside to this, is that one delegation can't commit to the next one.
Sure.
And so somehow when we go out for a bid, if I were bidding it and I were bidding on a 3-year project and year 2 came and the delegation said no, and I based it on a 3-year quote, I'd want, I don't know how you work with that in the school system. You must have been running into this before.
Yes.
We do. In fact, that's exactly what we have done. We went into a process 4 years ago in the school where we ended up selecting an engineering firm, Siemens, who designed the repairs of all our schools and gave us a budget number. And we selected them to take us all the way through one project at a time. 2 years ago, the voters approved upgrading one elementary school. This year, they did a second one, and the third year, they probably might, don't know, do the third. But regardless, it'll be the same contractor going through it. He then goes out and gets subcontractors, so we have a control over the price. But the thing is you want to get your design work and your scope of work settled early. Apart from this process, I prefer seeing what our long plan for security cameras at the nursing home was before we started out. Like, we're going to do this section this year, this section, excuse me. So you have an understanding what you're going to do. Then you find a project manager, can be the contractor. I think we're going to be facing a similar thing with the upgrades that we need to do in the dispatch office. I think we need to, before we spend money, find out what exactly it is we're going to do. And we'll probably find we can't do it all this year. That's better, I think, in the long run, planning-wise, because we spent $15,000 this year, as far as I know. We're not looking to do any more next year, but now I'm being told we probably will be. I don't think that makes any sense or not, but I think what we need to do is when we have a project such as this, pick someone to take us all the way through in the first go, and then stay with them. Don't change your horses in midstream. Because we don't change them in midstream anyways, because you only get one bid.
Any other discussion? The motion's been made and seconded to accept the A&B Locks proposal of $14,799 for the security cameras at the nursing home. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. So that's, we do. And now, Ken,
Could I
you
just
have the first,
Could I get a signature on one, on the bottom of, any one that you have?
just anywhere?
Yeah, anywhere on the bottom, so. Just something that shows acceptance.
The vote don't
What's
count?
the date?
I'm sorry?
The record of the vote doesn't count as,
Maybe. Sometimes it's just easier to show them a signature. Thank you.
Okay. So the budget is next, Ken?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ron.
In your packet is the first quarter expenditure. Most of the salary lines will be over the 25% because we had 3 payrolls in March and not 2. So they should be around 27, 26. Everything looks really well. I mean, really good. We're really doing well. Our unemployment tax and our workers' compensation is paid ahead of time, so that's all set for the year. Nothing that really jumped out at me this year or this quarter. You'll see that in the county attorney, the office supplies are at 44%. They bought a pallet of paper up front, so that should last them throughout the year.
Ken, is there a way to remove the 4104 that says you get $0?
It'll be removed next year. Yep.
Not till next year?
Right. Yeah, we have to go through another budget cycle in order for that to be removed.
Yes, sir.
I know it's not very much money, but what are we going to do about the treasurer's expense to make it more realistic? I'll have one that travels from North Conway versus coming over the hill in Tamworth and didn't take his mileage.
Yeah, well, no,
Did he take mileage?
yes, yes.
So the
Mileage.
650 is basically based on chip, not,
Right, and that'll be my first transfer, probably August.
You want me to transfer?
not at
to
this
him?
rate.
Huh?
Not at this rate.
Yeah,
It's 350 now.
right, so he has another quarter, which would be April, May, and June. So July or August, I'll
We only have
make
to,
sure.
we only have to put it in June, so we have the money to do it in July. That would be approval.
Well, it wouldn't be posted until the end of the month in July, so.
Okay.
When does the UNH Cooperative Extension get their transfers?
They normally do it monthly. They do it monthly or quarterly. Some do it quarterly, some do it
We
monthly.
just pay them for the quarter.
Excuse me, Ken, but it isn't a transfer, Madam Chairman, it's a monthly payment.
Well, I understand, but I mean, there
You
was,
said a transfer which indicates
And again, this is the first quarter,
overexpended that they
so
didn't.
so they've already got it because it's May. And they would put the invoice in April. So that won't be posted until the second quarter.
okay, because, well, it was puts in here that they have 0, it's their payment. Yes, I stand corrected.
Yeah, it just all depends how they take it. Some take it monthly, some take it quarterly.
Well, my only comment was I didn't want to make it appear, she said a transfer which usually.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I just-
Overspent and they haven't even come close
No.
to
No.
overspending.
No, I misspoke because I was thinking about
It
his
has a
first
good-
transfer in August, which I think is wonderful.
We have some good news, or not so good news, in a medical referee, and that'll be on page 5. Last year, it was all over the place as far as the transports and as far as the travel expense, and as far as the phone consults. This seemed the first quarter we've done really well there. I did talk to the county attorney, and there have been more deaths, so that'll be going up in the second quarter. But remember last year we had to transfer money last year into that account.
This has been a bugaboo of mine since I've been
Yeah.
on the board.
Yeah.
Why does it cost $140 to go to the hospital because an old person has fallen down and broken their hip and dies in the hospital? They obviously didn't do it on an
Right.
overdose.
Mhm.
Madam Chairman?
Yes. Yes. Commissioner Hounsell?
White Horse, was a payment made in April to them?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And the same thing with all the zeros in the nursing home will be rearranged for next year. Those
Yes,
three
'cause
that were
again, this-
combined,
This is the first year that we combined them, so they'll be gone next year.
it's just looking at pages of zeros is kind of like,
Madam Chairman?
yes, sir. Yes, Mark?
RSVP, did we make a payment there in April? And
Yes.
do we pass that out monthly, quarterly?
All depends how Miss Seavey sends the invoice in.
Okay,
She was doing it monthly, then it went to quarterly. I don't know where she is now,
okay,
but she is on top of it.
okay, I'm sure she is.
Ken?
They do a great job.
Yes.
Ken, I thought we had to, my recollection was we had to carry these numbers either some extended time, 4 or 5 years before they could be taken out of the
No,
system.
we can shrink them down. We can, what's called, we can, I guess we can collapse them. Because I asked Kathy that same thing last year. She said we have to write it out a year and then we
A
can
year.
get rid of them, yes.
Can we then reuse the lines?
That I think is a couple of years after, to make sure everything's, but I'm looking to get rid of lines, not add them, not add more lines.
Well, that was some of the reasons for the confusion in some of them, where there weren't enough lines to add things to. All right, any other yes, sir?
Public Works,
Mm-hmm.
lost my, let's see.
Education conference?
Yes.
He took all his water certifications, sewer certifications, and he took his pesticide license.
Okay,
So that should be it for the year, maybe another one little class.
okay.
I'm still waiting to hear on the pesticide license. He took it last week,
Okay.
or the week before.
Just looking at
Huh? I was just informed that he did pass, so he has his license.
that. Good.
Yep, that's good news.
Yes, sir.
Jail,
Yes?
is that travel expenses,
Ooh, what number?
070?
070 is travel, yes. Going to the academy,
You're going through half your money in a quarter of a year.
because we sent a sergeant there to teach one of the classes. That won't happen again. He went for 6 weeks, I think, every day for 6 weeks.
Okay,
He did take a cruiser if it was available, but sometimes it wasn't available.
do we know if there's enough in the balance remaining to satisfy for what they want to do?
Jason said that he's pretty sure, but he will get with me on the third quarter to make sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Ken, I don't really like the fact that we're paying to send an instructor down for the academy for certification for correctional officers for the four counties. It's one thing that if we're sending our students down and we have to pay the travel, we're going down and working for the organization, they ought to be paying our mileage.
Each county did send some, but you guys voted at the last Commissioners Council to hire a corrections coordinator, academy coordinator, for $20,000.
Not here.
No,
So
down
what
there,
does that
so
have
we
to
won't
do with
send anybody
travel
anymore.
expenses?
What?
What does that have to do with travel expenses?
Nothing, I'm just saying that each county sent someone to, to teach a class.
Oh my God, it's only 50 or 60 miles and we spent $4,000 to send them down once to teach a course? Doesn't make sense.
What are you saying, $4,000?
Well, I'm just roughing it out. You said travel expenses, 3,000, okay, I'm sorry, 1,500 for one day? I mean, that's,
No, it's not one day.
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
so he's instructing that
Well,
whole time.
and that's also the people going to the class. I think we had 2 students going to the class as well. Again, if they can take a cruiser, they will. But if we're, watching someone in the hospital, which we were last quarter, for several weeks, and also transporting people, we only have 2 cruisers.
With a J.
Yes. But we will have 3 cruisers now, once Jason purchases his 2 new ones.
Yes.
My comment was only sending an instructor down.
I got you.
If everybody else is doing it, okay, but if we're one of 2 counties sending it down, they ought to be paying us.
No, it was, all the counties sent an instructor down for a certain type of class.
1 of 4 counties.
Yes.
Yes.
So the 4 counties that went down were which ones?
I don't know off the top of my head.
All right, well, let's say, I don't know, if it's Merrimack, they just had to go across the
Right.
street, so their travel expenses went.
No, I think it's Coas, Grafton,
So,
and Stratford.
so Coas and Carroll spend more money to get their instructors down there than the other counties. So I think Commissioner Babson makes a valid point, although I don't think we can do anything at this table. I would think that if this is something the county association is looking to participate, that there ought to be some sort of commitment from the other 6 counties who aren't sending someone to fund it through that association.
Well, 2 counties don't go. 2 counties do their own.
Well, yeah, but I don't want to get bogged down on something, but you have an association of
Yeah.
counties. That association of counties, however they did it, decided that they're going to do this program, and 4 counties decided that they were going to send instructors at our expense down there. The cost of going down there varies based on distance. If the entire association is serviced by this work, which I must only imagine that they are, then they ought to be paying their fair share. It seems to me, and I haven't really looked at it, that your northern counties are paying more to accommodate the association than perhaps they should on this one. But maybe there's other areas of give and take. But to Commissioner Babson's point, we shouldn't have to pay money to send people down to give someone a service.
This won't happen again because now we've hired someone, so will not reoccur.
Okay,
Okay, but when you say "we," it's not Carroll County.
No, the association of counties.
Well, because for the public, I'd like to know that there's a difference
Right, you both voted for that, so,
at the county.
at the county association.
And I probably would have if I was down there getting the same information. That isn't my point. My point is, once that's been voted on, I think it's incumbent for the association to make sure that everyone's paying the same cost of accommodating that vote. And it looks to me that your northern, I
He's
don't
paying more.
know, I don't even want to get bogged down on it anymore.
It was just a one-time thing,
Yeah.
it's not gonna happen again,
okay.
Yeah.
so. Anything else?
I think the department heads are doing a very good job. This looks like everybody's right on top of what's going on.
I think if that's all we have, Madam Chairman, on a $30 million budget, that's pretty good for the first quarter.
Sure.
So, moving on, our first appointment
Is
is
here.
at 9 o'clock, and she has arrived.
So can we take a recess so I can set this up?
Certainly. We will take a small recess so we can get our projector going.
Hi, Cheryl.
Yes, boys, you can have. Yes, all right. Our next presenter is Cheryl Burke with the AUP presentation.
Morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for inviting me here to attend your meeting to review the agreed upon procedures engagement. I see that you have it up on the screen, so I can probably just walk through and give you a brief overview of each of the points that were addressed in the engagement and answer any questions that you might have. If you start to scroll through the document, you'll start with the transmittal letter that explains what the agreed upon procedures were. These were provided to us from the County Delegation and are included in the engagement letter in this specific wording. It's important to note that an agreed upon procedures engagement is quite different than an audit engagement. It's very specific and it reports only on specific elements, and it doesn't really constitute an audit per se that you would see when we do your annual audit of your financial statement. So moving on, and also I should just very much point out that I would like to thank everybody in the county staff, especially Chuck, Ken, and Kathy. Kathy provided much of the information that's included in the report. And as you know, it's quite lengthy. It's over 1,000 pages long of this report that she had provided. And she was able to, after many hours of digging, find a lot of this information for us. So starting with the first item, we have the nursing home bond funds. The procedures or the agreed upon procedures were to prepare a detailed analysis of the use of nursing home construction bond funds. And the results are summarized below. So what we did is we took various pieces of information, reports from the general ledger, vendor reports, and tie in by year where the money or for what year the monies were charged. And this all ties into reports that come from your general ledger system. So you can see you started with about $24 million in bond funds and $22,574,429 related to actual construction costs. There was $1.675 million that was voted by the delegation to be used for bond payments. As part of this project, you also received grant funds that were applied to project costs totaling $400,100, leaving about $231,000, which was ultimately closed out to the general fund. Not really stated in this report when you say, it's not really a bank account, it's just kind of part of the pooled cash concept when you say close out to the general fund. So that's really what was able to be derived from the supporting documentation.
Cheryl, from this, would you, or can we agree that the money that was left over wasn't stolen?
From what I can tell, there was no fraud involved. In fact, your general ledger is very detailed. It's very specific about who got paid, what vendor got paid. It's actually an excellent vendor report, a detail. It really tells the story of who got paid. So I, you know, from an audit standpoint, and again, I know this isn't an audit, I feel pretty confident about the information that was provided and who was paid as part of the project.
So what did you say, an excellent,
Oh, general ledger system, when you read the general ledger is kind of the books and accounting records.
I understand that, but someone's gonna say the money's stolen,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to quote you, it was excellent. You
We've seen no
swear-
evidence of that.
And it was an excellent.
But the general ledger you
system.
said was an excellent,
It is, it really tells the
That's what I
story.
wanted.
From an accounting standpoint, I mean, there's a report, and it is included in this report. You can see the payments, the date, the payment name, the vendor name, the amount, who was paid. So it's very detailed, and not all general ledgers are like that. They sometimes post in a summary format, like when you run a manifest, it's like one giant total that gets posted into the GL, but your general ledger is very detailed, and it's included in there, and then you can read and you can see by date and by vendor the amounts that were paid. So this is just a summary of that, but further on in the report, there is that level of detail.
Thank you.
Yes, Mark.
I'm pretty good on this type of stuff, but I got one term that I'd like to have you clarify for me. It's your double asterisk. Just briefly explain to me what you mean when you say construction costs for capitalization. I'm not, is that like the sum total of what was paid out for that year, or?
It's more of an accounting term, and I'm kind of doing it for my benefit because, you know, on one side, I'm the auditor of the financial statements, and there's numbers that are reported there with respect to the cost of the project, and then there's this engagement that we did. So this is a summary, and the double asterisk represents, under generally accepted accounting principles, the costs that would be eligible for putting on the fixed asset listing and depreciated, so that's.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, so that's your term for what it costs to build a building?
yes, exactly.
And you get them broken out by, in the 4 years,
Correct.
is that correct?
Correct, yep.
12, 13, 14, and 15. That's the total each year for what was paid out to produce the building.
Yes, yeah, well, actually, if you go, like, if you look in the cost column right there, you see you see the year 1, 2, that cost column right there, those are the costs that agree to the general ledger report, the detail by vendor report. And you can see that even though, you know, you definitely incurred some costs prior to the project getting going. So those are the years and the amounts when they were incurred, coming down to about 23 million. And then, of course, you take out $400,000. But really, the start items, of course, the bond payment is not a capitalizable item. And it's really just the start items that would be considered capitalizable.
Yeah, okay, thank you. You got a report question, want to do that now or later?
Damon, you have a question?
Yeah, I think the question the delegation will have is, did the 231,000 belong in the general fund? Was that a legitimate place to put it?
That's really more, if I may, more of a legal question. What happens with unspent bond proceeds is that typically you would consult your bond counsel on the use of any leftover monies. A common use of leftover bond monies would be to be applied to the debt itself. So I would say if the monies went to the general fund indirectly, it probably could be considered as subsidizing those payments. It's a source of revenue in the general fund, which is the fund that is responsible for paying the debt.
Okay, that right there settled an awful lot of stuff in my head. Thank you.
Any other questions on this one? The next one is the demolition of 2 wings of the nursing home. The procedures were to obtain supporting documentation for the cost bids, bids responding to the RFP, the contracts, and the payment. This is a bullet item listing of what is included further on in the report of the things that were able to be obtained related to this particular request of the delegation.
Am I correct, Cheryl, when I tell people, basically it cost us $1,026,000 because money doubles, but roughly in 7 years, and we had a 3.5% bond, and so basically we paid for it with bonded money, and we're going to be paying for it for 20 years, whether it's for the removal or we're still paying for it. So it basically we paid $1,026,000 the way I figure it. If we hadn't, the thing to do would have been raise the money by taxation and pay for it today. We're paying for this over 20 years.
Are you referring to the nursing home project in general?
No, the removal of the 2 wings.
Removal, yeah.
We paid it with bond money.
You played it with bond money, yep, yep.
So when we paid it 3.5% and
Yep.
money doubles in 7, so basically we paid $1,026,000 the way I figure it.
You definitely are paying more for it because you financed it as opposed to raising the money yourselves and paying for it when you incur the costs.
3.5% doesn't double in 7 years, does it?
Well, 7%, roughly 7 or 8%, it doubles.
But
I don't know, I can't run a lemonade stand, so I don't know.
But doesn't the percentage change year by year?
Is it variable?
Yeah, I think it's a variable, isn't it?
That was fixed on that.
Oh, it's fixed on that. Okay.
We still in the, where are we?
Demolition of the nursing
Okay,
home.
if I might.
Yeah.
You had, the county signed a contract with Excel for $536,310. According to what I'm looking at, they were paid $513,455. And then there was an additional expense of $624. So roughly $22,000 was saved off the signed contract price. Is that, am I reading that correct? I mean, I'm just curious why Excel didn't get $536.
Based on the information that was provided, that was the cost that was paid for the project.
Okay, I was just curious why they didn't get the last $22,855. Maybe we can search that out. I just would like to know for my own.
I'm sorry?
Was that included?
Usually
as part
that's-
of the bond?
We'll go back to Kathy.
I believe, yes, I believe this was part of the bonded project.
So there's a, I agree with Mark, we have the 22,855. If it's, was it paid back to the bond?
Or the other thing is,
No, because it was taken out.
was there a change order along the way that changed the contract amount?
Yes.
That might explain it.
Yes, it was.
And the other thing that, before this has any meaning, was what was the budget amount that there was for the demolition of the 2 wings? See, where did the money come from? Was it tax money or bond money? I'm not quite connected with that.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Where did the source of the $500,000 come from?
I think it was bond money.
It was
As
bond
far
money.
as I recall,
Okay.
I mean, just kind of thinking it through, I don't
Bond.
recall any separate appropriation
There's no
for
vote
this.
for it.
Yeah,
So was it this same bond
I
money?
believe it is correct, yes.
Okay. So did we bond the 536?
Not separately, it's just paid for as part of the larger bonded project.
Where is it?
I'm sufficiently confused.
It's probably included in, it's probably included in one of the costs. I can look further into that with you to identify on the first page, the nursing home bond fund, which specific line it was changed. I don't recall it.
I'd like to know, if it's possible, to find out the transaction that took this bond money from the new nursing home over onto this. It must be some sort of, must be something, I don't, yeah, I gotta know, I would like to know where that $536,000 was sourced from.
Sure, I definitely have that information, I just don't know it off the top of my
Okay.
head.
Thank you.
Yep.
And with the difference between that and the actual cost, the $22,855, I believe, where that is, so you're a mentor.
That I can ask, we can certainly work with Ken and staff and find out if there's any documentation that would indicate why it was less than that. I do recall, I don't know if there was an explanation that was just, invoices showing the final cost amount.
But I appreciate your work, because you have identified there's a question on $22,855.
Yep.
That's good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, Dave?
To answer Mark's question, Commissioner Hunsell's question, there was an increase because when they got into it, they found, when they quoted the job, that was the price unless they found some problem with asbestos. They found a problem with asbestos and billed us, I think it was an additional $14,000 for the asbestos removal.
But they were paid $22,000 less than the contract.
No, but I can't explain that, but you asked whether there was any adjustment in the contract, and yes, the answer was,
Asbestos,
yes,
yeah.
there was.
Yeah.
I think probably the answer to that is they made an estimate on what it would cost, and the actual building came in under the estimate, so it was never paid out.
Could have been an open-ended contract, but there was not, you had to see the contract.
And then the source of the fund was the bond. Everything came out of the bond.
So there's $22,000 that we gotta find.
No, that rolled into the general fund at the end because it was left over.
Let's see that. Dave?
Amanda?
So they were still spending bond money when they demolished the two wings? Or did they add money to the bond?
No,
It was part of the bond.
That was still the original bond money for the
Yes.
new nursing home. All right.
that's why I thought Damon wants that.
Yes, Damon?
So, we had heard that we were gonna pay for this nursing home, wing demolition for 20 years, but now we're saying, we've paid, 500,000 change, or 22,000 short, so, or less than what the bill is expected to be, so we're paying, $1,000 a year for 20 years, or like, what's the bill for 20 years?
If I could take a
Yes.
stab at my understanding, because this was bond money, the bond was obtained for a 20-year period. What we do with that, we still have that 20-year period, whether we demoed this or whether we took the bond money and, did something else, we're obliged to it. You gotta watch how you spend bond money. For example, when they built the high school in Conway, the new high school, it was $40-something million. Well, they put in there money for new computers. Well, that was a foolish thing to do, because the computers that were purchased in 2007 lasted until about 2011 before they became antiquated and junk. And so they're all in the dumpster, and we're paying 20-year bond on it. So you gotta be very careful how you move bond money. So it could be, and probably is we're paying for 20 years.
So the demo company has been paid, but we're paying back a bond,
Right.
which will take 20 years.
Right.
Okay.
Not the best way to do it, but that's okay.
Well,
Live and learn.
The 20 years we're paying back started in 2010, didn't it?
You make your first payment when you take the money.
2012.
Yeah,
Usually there's 6 months, every 6 months. you make
2012 was the
two
first
payments a
project.
year.
So it's 20 years from 2012.
Yeah, it's 2012, 2032.
32, yeah.
So the money that we spent demolishing those two wings, we didn't use until 2015.
Doesn't matter, the bond payment is fixed per year, $1,175,000, regardless of what you did with the money.
The minute you get a bond, it goes into a bank and you
Right.
start paying interest. The second that you do it.
Millies.
But some of that bond money was invested, wasn't it? Until we used it.
No, it was put into a CD
Yes.
for like,
Short term.
yeah.
You don't have really enough time to collect any money because you gotta get the building done.
And I
Yes.
think that was $2 million.
Ed?
Thank you. I'm trying to stay on point instead of going off on a tangent. If I remember correctly, the delegation and commission years ago looked at how much money would be saved by not having to pay for the heat and the maintenance of those two wings. And I was wondering, just keep that in mind when you're looking at the numbers, it has to be backed out of that long-term 20-year bond for cost. That's all. Thank you.
What is that?
Are we done with this?
I believe so. Any other questions?
The next item relates to credit cards. The request was to prepare a detailed analysis of credit card activity for 2012 through 2015 using various items of supporting documentation. Included in the addendum to the report are reports showing the credit card postings to the general ledger, the paid invoice reports by vendors, so those are the payments of the credit cards in the accounting system, and then the credit card statements themselves. You can see down at the bottom, there's an analysis of the report, so a total of $419,976 was posted to the general ledger during 2012 through 2015. It's broken down by the sheriff and MVC. You can see the comparison down in the bottom of the general ledger to the paid invoice report to the credit card statement. Some slight variations between what was posted to the accounting system reports and the credit cards, but not considered to be material. And then also important to point out, if you ran a total of the credit card statements themselves, they were higher than what got posted to the general ledger, and that is because at MVC they allowed the residents to be able to charge things on there, and then the residents reimbursed them. So of course that was their stuff, not included in the general ledger.
Cheryl, this has been a bugaboo of mine since I started signing checks 4 years ago. Is there a better way, has some company come up with a better way to keep track of credit cards? You saw them, it's just, some of them are literally an inch thick of invoices. Everybody has each department has it, and it's broken down by each individual in the department. Seems to me there's got to be a better way.
Just in response to your comments, your questions, from an audit standpoint, credit cards are considered to be a little bit higher risk because they circumvent the regular disbursement process. And when I say that, what happens is people are allowed to make charges before they're approved. So they're approved kind of after the fact. So it can be considered a risk. You can also see, and you had indicated that there are multiple departments that have the use of the credit card. Sometimes what we see on the audit side is that, it gets out of hand, people want to tighten things up a bit, and so they really only have a couple of credit cards, maybe up at the business office level, or, they restrict the use of them and limit the use of them because they do circumvent. So that's certainly a management comment, you know, for consideration. If you feel, you know, that there is a risk associated with that, to maybe tighten up, reduce the volume of credit cards and transactions that are out there, take a close look at the process.
Well, I don't think I'm not insinuating there's a risk, but it's hell to go through to try to each, the commissioner Sorensen had to have, we had to have a credit card, so he put his name on it, and he finally smartened up and took it off.
Yeah,
But that card comes in, and then for the sheriff's department, it'll have each one of the deputies that
Yeah.
make purchases.
yeah. It's a lot of work, as you saw.
It's hard to check, I mean, it's just,
Certainly is.
there gotta be a better way.
Yes, ma'am.
I absolutely agree with Commissioner Babson. For years, and I do consider it a risk. You know, I have no idea that anyone's doing anything off script, but I do see them as a risk. And I've longed for a long time in various boards that I've been on to see credit card procedures be a lot tighter than what I've ever seen it. It could go bad quick if you had the wrong person with the card. So I don't know what the answer is, but I'd like to see the tightest reasonable procedures on credit cards as we can have and still get work done. I don't want to have it be so tight that you can't get anything done. I don't want to create a bureaucracy, but at the same time, it's an open door to the cash box, or an exposed door. But that's really nothing. Oh, I did have a question on your spreadsheet here on the bottom of credit cards. What period are we talking about there?
This represents 2012 through 2015, the summary at the bottom.
Okay, that's 2012 to 2015.
Correct.
Total. Read again. Oh, I saw it here, thank you. I'm sorry, I should have. Thank you.
The next item is the pellet boiler system. The procedures were to obtain supporting documentation for the costs, the bids, responding to the RFP, the contracts, and the payments. In the addendum D to the report are copies of the proposal, the signed contract with BPS for $375,000, and copies of detailed invoices and checks and payments. An additional invoice and check to BPS for $50,400 related to piping. An agreement with biomass commodities, and then minutes approving biomass commodities. Below is a summary of all of that information for the cost of the pellet system.
It's fairly straightforward.
That was put in 2013 or 14.
Probably around that. I don't remember off the top of my head.
But the crux of the problem wasn't installation. It was Representative McCarthy felt that the word installation meant that the boiler company would come along and put it in and wire and do the plumbing.
If I might on that, that's common to people who aren't working in the industry. The terms are provide, install, furnish, and
It should have
install.
been provide.
Provide and install, or furnish and install. If it's just install, that means they don't buy the thing, they just install it. It's usually the owner that buys it, they install it. So you need to have the words furnish and install, or provide. Provide is if they just bring it. Install is if whatever's there is installed.
Set it on the pad and
Right.
screw it down, but
So the answer I would say to anyone asking why did they provide it, because it wasn't before that was to install it. If it was to install it in provider, it would be furnish and install.
Well, where's the
Terminology.
wiring and hook up to the plumbing come?
I'd have to see the contract.
Because they brought it in and put it in place, and my recollection is Representative McCarthy thought they should have hooked it up. I call it hookup. We had to hire our own people to hook
I'd
it
have
up.
to see the spec, but
Should have been in the
if you
contract.
spend $50,000 to pipe it, that's part of installation. But you could install piping and have nothing to do with the boiler. I've seen that. I've seen you
This
take,
was the hookup.
you take piping so far, you see it with plumbing all the time. People, you take your plumbing 5 feet outside the building, and the excavator picks it up from there. So you'd have to see the specifications, say who did what where. And I'm sure that's spelled out, because I can
We had
imagine.
it in that contract, because I read it. I don't know where the contract is now.
But, I don't know, not much you can do about it now.
The next item relates to an analysis of the unreserved fund balance using the accounting records for 2011 through 2015. I wanted to point out on the bottom here, years 2011 through 2014, the fiscal year 2014 unaudited disclaimer of opinion. Those years were audited by a different accounting firm. We audited, our first year was 2015. And it's important to note that this information here comes from the audited financial statements, the balance sheet. And in the years 2011 through 2014, before we became your auditors, the presentation of your financial statements was such that you had the general fund, and then you reported the nursing home as a separate, what they call an enterprise fund. And enterprise funds in accounting are using different methods of accounting than the general fund does. Specifically, on the enterprise fund, what had been reported in those years was that you had the fixed assets, the capital assets on the books, you had any long-term debt on that nursing home fund. Our firm does a lot of audits of New Hampshire counties, and the trend or the best practice for that is to combine the general fund and the nursing home into one fund, as you saw with your 2015 financial statements. There's a couple of different reasons. You know, it's much easier for users of the financial statements to understand when you have the general fund and the nursing home fund in one fund, as opposed to separating them out and using a different method of accounting for the nursing home. I know my experience with some of my other accounting clients is that some of the bond rating agencies were very confused about the separate presentation about the nursing home. Other reasons are that you really budget these things as one budget, so they kind of should be looked at. So important to note that the numbers up there in the earlier years represent only the general fund portion, so there is still a nursing home portion outside of that. In fiscal 2014, that audit firm disclaimed in an opinion. You'll see the negative 1644907. Basically, that means that your statements were unaudited at that point. They did not provide an opinion on them. When we came in 2015, we talked with Ken and Chuck and I believe some members of the commissioners about the new presentation. And so we went back to fiscal 2014 and actually audited those beginning balances or the beginning balance sheet. And what we came up with was the negative 254,482, followed by a very good year in 2015, a positive 2,105,530. So I'm hoping that this answers the questions of the delegation, that this was really what they were looking for. Not sure, just kind of throwing the question out there to you folks.
Cheryl, what was this is the unaudited figure from Bulio on
Yes.
1644.
Yep.
When you started, what was your what did you adjust it to before you started it?
Right.
Is he anywhere near accurate?
His number right there had a lot, we made a lot of adjustments. We went, as I mentioned, we went back and we re-audited it because he didn't give an opinion on it. So what we came up with, by taking the general fund and combining it with the nursing home, is that figure right beneath it, the negative 254,482.
Oh,
That's,
I hadn't read down.
yep,
Okay.
now, it's a little, maybe it's a little confusing, but we kind of,
So it was a negative
that's
254
really,
when you...
yeah, that's what we came up with when we went back and audited the balance sheet for 2014, the general fund and the nursing home as one fund.
But if you were to take 2011 and 2012 and roll in the nursing home to that, that would be a negative number.
Yeah, I'm assuming, and that's just off the top of my head, I
Yeah.
think if I recall the numbers, that would be the case.
Mhm.
So 2015 included both the general fund and the nursing home.
Correct, yep,
And so did 14 as well.
yep, correct.
So how did, if 2011 and 12 would have been negative had we put the two together, and suddenly 2015 is 2 million in the positive, that seems kind of,
No, because
Amazing.
if you would have combined, she combined in 2014, she took that 1644 and rolled in the nursing home to that and did it without an enterprise fund, and that's what we got. It was at 1.6.
it was changing the enterprise fund that changed
Right,
the amount of
yes.
the profit
It was,
that much.
it was probably the most significant factor. There were other factors, but nursing home was the most significant factor when you combined everything together.
And you changed from the enterprise
Yep,
fund
Really, yep,
to the
exactly,
regular
to
fund.
a regular governmental fund, right.
Because it can never be an enterprise fund, because we loan, the general fund loans it money, and it never pays it back, really.
Right, exactly. When you look at the definition of governmental funds and enterprise funds in accounting, an enterprise fund is typically a fund that is more reliant on user fees, whereas in New Hampshire counties, we all know that taxation supports nursing homes to a certain extent for county nursing homes, and so that is why it seems to make more sense. It's also easier to understand when the two are combined, you know. It's one budget, essentially. It's one budget that you're looking at.
Oh, Cheryl. I believe we had engagement letters with Bulio here, and he never provided us, to my recollection, any management letters.
I did not see any.
You didn't see any
No,
either?
we did not receive
What-
any.
Aren't they obligated, if they sign an engagement letter, to give us a management letter?
As
Yeah,
part,
as an accounting, not a legal question, but as an accounting question?
the guidelines under auditing standards, not accounting standards, auditing standards, those are our rules that we have when we do audits of financial statements, are that if there are, it termed material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control, the auditor is required to report those to those charged with governance, being commissioners. So those are the guidelines. If anything had come to the auditor's attention, they would have been required to report that.
So is it fair to me, for me to assume that he found no significant, because he never sent a letter, so everything must have been fine as far as they were concerned? And I
Yeah,
don't want to put you on the hot seat.
Yep. And typically accounting firms, in order to be able to do audits for license, we have to have peer reviews. So I'm assuming that his firm went through the peer review process. And part of that would be, reviewing some of his work papers and seeing that he is in fact reporting that what he should be to those charged with governance. I mean, that certainly, we have a peer review every 3 years by another firm. It's on the State and Society website, our report, and it certainly would be a finding to us if that peer reviewer found that our audit paperwork, papers supported that there was something that needed to be reported, so that would be a finding.
Thank you.
And you had a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Cheryl. You mentioned before about the enterprise fund change, changed that number, but you also stated that there were other factors. Can you define what you meant by other factors?
Yep, if you look, I think, and I'm talking off my top of my head, if you look at the unaudited 2014 work papers, there's a couple of funds. There was something that we excluded, I can't remember.
It was Hale's location.
Hale's location was included in your financial statements, so that was moved out. There were a couple of funds that may or may not, and I can't remember what direction they were going. Most likely it was reported as a separate fund, but really needs to be part of the general fund, so brought into the general fund. So those are the smaller adjustments off the top of my head that I can think of.
Thank you.
Jim?
Yes.
So the 1.6, the negative 1.6 million is accurate if you, or around the right number if you keep the nursing home as a separate fund, but if you combine it, you get negative 254,000.
I really can't speak to that 1,644,000 figure because it's unaudited.
Okay.
There was no opinion given on it. And when you give an opinion on the financial statements, you're attesting that you believe the number is materially correct. So if there is no opinion, the report didn't say that.
Okay. So essentially, it's your belief that the county was in the red by 254,000 in 2014.
Correct. We re-audited in the beginning balances in order to be able to give you a clean opinion on the numbers in 2015. We would need to audit the beginning balances. So we went back and did that. Otherwise, there would have been an exception in the report. We would have only been able to give an opinion on the balance sheet because we didn't know what the starting point was.
It's a huge swing. And so we went from negative 254,000 to up 2.1 million.
And you also have to remember that when you're combining the nursing home, it's not as simple as just going back to 2014 and taking the general fund and taking the nursing home and bringing them together. They're using two methods of accounting, so you have big numbers on the nursing home that don't get brought into the general fund, like those fixed assets and long-term debt. So there's a lot to it. It's not as easy as just meshing the two together.
And the alleged bad debt too.
Correct. That comes together. So I think if you're referring to some of the presentations in past years, you would see on the general fund that the nursing home had owed it money, that sort of thing, and that was driving the fund balance down. Whereas we all know the nursing home's not going to be able to come up with the money to pay that. So you bring it together, it kind of goes away. I don't know if I'm making any sense there.
Something we'll have
Cheryl, was
to
it
think
your
about.
firm that wrote off the long-term debt?
No, I don't really know.
They don't write
No.
off.
No,
So it was the prior firm.
I am not sure.
When
They
David
certainly
Miller
didn't
was
write off
the-
any debt as part of the audit.
Auditors don't write off.
No, the accounting did.
Are we done with this one?
Yes.
The next one relates to specific account numbers in your general ledger. The request was to prepare a detailed analysis of account activity for these two particular accounts. And you can see in the results section, it's more of an explanation about what these two accounts were being used for during this time period. They were used kind of as a holding account to accumulate project expenses until they could be moved. And I think they were journal entries that were being done to take the costs out of these accounts and put them in the appropriate accounts on a quarterly basis. And in the early years, in 2011 through 2014, again, going back to, you have a separate fund for the nursing home, it's using a different method of accounting, the accrual basis. So some of these costs were going from, this holding account into the fixed asset categories. That is different now because of the change that was reflected in the 2015 financial statements. So essentially, that is what was flowing through these accounts during that period of time. Kind of, and it's kind of a common practice. It can be a common practice. I mean, you certainly, it's just an accounting mechanism, kind of to charge costs until you can kind of further analyze them and put them in the correct place, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
The next one is similar to the one we just talked about. The request was to prepare a detailed analysis of account activity for this particular account. The reports that we obtained, the general ledger reports for 2011 through 2015 for this account number did not have any entries in them.
That's easy to add.
The next one relates to unanticipated funds of $60,250 that were received in 2014. In Addendum F to the report is the supporting documentation that was obtained from it. I believe it was a payment from the state of New Hampshire. Related to that $60,000.
It was what's that called again? Do you remember the term that Kathy used?
It was something, it was like a back payment for something.
Yeah.
For what?
64,000.
I forget the terminology. I can go to Addendum Map after and see it.
What was it for, do you remember?
It was from the state of New Hampshire. It was not a seized property, but not a foreclosed
Is it
property.
abandoned property?
No.
Unclaimed?
No. No, when someone goes to a nursing home and they've got leftover funds, well, I'll go to F and get it after.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
The heading says
Sort
that,
of like that.
the heading here says unanticipated funds received $60,250. And then we see that we received $64,250, another $4,000 more. I'm just wondering,
That might be a typo.
one of the others a typo?
Yeah, I'll have to check that.
Would-
Good catch.
Do you think it's the top one or the bottom one?
You hope it's
It's got Addendum F.
the top one.
You're probably gonna have to scroll way down.
Oh, it's way down at the bottom? What is that?
That's the audited financials, you're
Okay,
close.
you're getting close.
Yep. Oh,
I just saw
sorry.
F.
Yep,
There it is right there.
okay, it's 64.
So that's the top one goes to say 64.
Yep, right there, and then there's, keep going down. That's the posting, the ACS Financials System posting, one more down. We'll show you the check from the state of New Hampshire.
64,320.
And
That's from Human Services.
and it's for,
That'd be on the next page, I believe.
That's your, kind of your receipts journal that whoever's logging in.
Well, one was a trust.
Yeah, keep going
There it is. State of New Hampshire, 64,000.
down. The state,
State
the
recoveries.
state recovery.
state recovery.
Yeah.
Huh. Curious. Right.
The next one is payments to Friends of Mountain View. So the request was to identify payments to Friends of Mountain View for 2011 through 2015. What we did is we reviewed the accounting system payments reports for 2011 through 2015, and we did not see any payments to Friends of Mountain View from that report.
That's another easy one to have it.
So basically on this one, we were looking to see if the county made payments to a nonprofit
Okay.
that's in place to take care of, to help out with the nursing.
Did not see any.
And we did not do that.
Correct.
Thank you.
The next one is the TAN fund. So the request was to prepare a detailed analysis of 2015 TAN funds, including the amounts used, transferred, as well as amounts utilized for expenses. This was a little bit of a challenge to do because basically the TAN funds are, you know, it's a borrowing, it's a temporary borrowing for cash flow purposes. So there really can't be any specific expenses that are charged to it. It's not like it's a fund or a budget line item or anything like that. It's primarily used as a cash flow mechanism for counties. Very, very common that counties do this just based on the way that they get paid their taxes. So as part of this specific request, we went through and we looked at all of the bank statements and prepared this analysis that you're looking at on the bottom to show the TAN draws, and that's the column on the far right. So included in the addendum to the report, you can see all the bank statements with all the drawdowns, all the monies going into the county's accounts. Just as part of that, you know, it's kind of an auditor thing, you know, wanting to see, does it make sense that when the monies were taken from on the TAN drawdowns, when the drawdowns were taken, does it make sense that at that point in time the county was in a cash flow situation? So for example, if you look at the first line, January 2015, these are the primary accounts of the Bank of New Hampshire Citizens accounts right there. So if you look at the general ledger report at that point in time, right before the TAN of $3 million was drawn down, your cash was in negative position. So really what this is indicating is that it makes sense that the drawdown took place at that point in time. You just have to be aware that, you know, the balance without the TAN draw column is coming from the general ledger, and the information that's in the general ledger is it can be a little bit subjective because sometimes things don't post in order, sometimes the exact date, you know, if somebody's posting transactions for a particular item and they're only getting a month-end statement, they may not be using the exact dates throughout the month. They may just be posting transactions at the end of the month or something like that. So basically that is kind of what happened with respect to the TAN in 2015.
October 2015,
Yes,
balance without the TAN was 1.245,
yes.
and then we took a draw of 1.2. Does that mean that balance would have been a negative 45,000?
That's kind of why I was explaining that column, the balance without the TAN draw. Those balances come from the general ledger. So
Sure.
at the date of the drawdown, that's what the cash in the general ledger said.
Right.
But the cash in the general ledger, let's just say that whoever's posting the receipts as of that date, they're behind a couple of days. So you've got some timing things that can play into this.
Okay.
It's not an exact science. It's just kind of giving you an idea of where things might have been at the end of the month. So to answer your question, it's likely that it wasn't negative. It's just that the general ledger didn't reflect the exact balance at that point in time.
Okay.
You know, general ledger is really a moving target.
Sure, sure.
But Cheryl, can we assume that we were pretty close to
You're
out
pretty
of
close.
cash?
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect assumption to be made on that month.
Okay.
But you can't tell us what.
No, because it's a moving target.
It is. I mean, there are so many factors. If you think of all of the things, the hundreds and hundreds and thousands of transactions that go through your general ledger, and like I was saying earlier, your general ledger really tells the story very easily with doing a minimal amount of work. It's almost like a book. You can see money coming out. It has nice descriptions about who was paid, monies that come in. Some of these general ledgers is just a summary. Manifest, $2 million. It just shows a summary total, but yours really tells the story. And again, you know, if somebody's posting something that they only post monthly, you know, it can fluctuate. It really only hits the last date of the month, when in
Sure.
fact it was deposited during the month.
Right?
Yes, Dave?
If we're done on that, can we go to the next three? September 2015, it looks like we were probably in a positive position. September, we were in the hole. November, we come back, and in December, we're supposed to be getting our tax revenue, and yes, it's up, but not very much.
It's a cash flow thing, isn't it?
And we still take $1 million.
Well, September is when we got our supplemental.
Okay, that counts for that.
October, I don't know.
I would, I'm going to speculate. What I would think is, okay, you look at that, okay, we need $1 million we don't really need $1 million in December. For January 1st, we'll need it. You know, if you look at, and I'm just making assumptions here. Look at March 2015. Balance without the TAN was 446, but we took a TAN draw of quite a bit more than that, $2 million. Well, that all works for the next month.
Well, because in August, then July, the bank shut us off. So we were able to draw the $2 million the day before the bank shut us off. That was a Friday, and Monday they shut us off. August, they let us take 2.3 to get us through to the September 9th supplemental budget hearing. Once we got that through, we didn't have to draw any because we already took that 2.3 that the bank allowed us to draw. And so that's why in September we didn't draw any. And then October, we drew 1.2, didn't draw anything in November. And December, we took $1 million probably because there's 3 payrolls in the month.
But didn't we also, isn't December 17th the deadline for towns
Yes.
in the county?
Yep, and if you look at 16 draws, you'll probably see that there wasn't any draw in January. And 17 draws, you'll see probably the first 3 months there wasn't any draws. So,
I think it was almost April, wasn't it?
If I was to spend some time with this, Madam Chairman, I would say that this is a pretty good use of managed cash flow management with the TAN's money. And it looks to me like it was used in very reasonable fashion. I know there was some difficulties there, like you were talking about in
Yeah.
July, but
July, August.
to me, it looks like a pretty good piece of work.
Kathy
Do
doesn't
some tough
draw
times.
unless she needs to.
Well, the other thing I would say, I like, just as a matter of practice, I like detailed notes and general ledgers.
She does a good job.
Yeah, I like that, because you never know, like, we were just able to find out what that 64,000 was.
Yes.
And, you know, that's good. I think that's good bookkeeping.
Any other questions?
David's got his hand.
So I think the bottom line of all of this, from what it sounds like, there's no evidence of fraud or criminal activity or anything like that that you were able to detect globally in this search of our.
Correct.
Yes,
If you read the agreement, the engagement letter, it states that you were not looking for fraud. So I'm wondering why I keep hearing that there was no fraud if that's not what you were charged to do.
Our responsibility, auditor's responsibility, regardless of the engagement, whether it be a financial statement audit or agreed upon procedures audit, you're right. The engagement letter states that is not the intent or the goal of the engagement. However, auditors that are following generally accepted auditing standards have a responsibility to communicate any fraud that is brought to our attention. We have a responsibility to look into it. We have a responsibility to bring it up the ladder to, first to management, then possibly to those charged with governance, and then finally also report it in a management letter if it warrants doing so. So if we're following our standards, we would need to report that to you, even though it isn't the goal of the engagement.
Just a quick follow-up. I bring that up because that will be something that the delegation will be asking.
Yep, it's a very good question.
I have a question, and it's bothered me right along. As of January 31st in 2015, it was a $3 million draw. And yet, we should have had all of our tax money to pay those bills in January. Why were those January bills over $2 million?
I do not know the answer to that. We have year-end, I'm just thinking month-end, year-end type of bills that somehow may played into that factor, perhaps.
There couldn't been not enough revenue at the end of 14, there could be an unexpected bill.
The other thing is, if you go back and you think about, well, we don't have to go back, but if you think about where we thought you were in terms of general fund balance at the beginning of 2015, when we went back and we audited those balances, you got yourself in a negative $254,000 situation. Fund balance isn't necessarily cash. I mean, fund balance also includes, as you know, receivables and payables that are on the books. So it's very possible that even though that fund balance was only negative 250 something, you had a lot of payments, and people owed you money, and there were receivables. So there's a lot of factors that could contribute to that at that point in time.
Isn't that where we were beginning to go in the hole, needing the supplementary budget? Really, that's the year that the year end that the projection for revenue for therapy was $900,000 short. Wasn't that in January of December of 2014?
I wasn't here, I don't know, but
And that led to the deficit, which we had the supplementary budget all later in the next year.
I mean, that all played a part in it, because apparently at the beginning of the year, there was, a lot of bills that were coming in. There wasn't sufficient amount of
Money.
revenue to pay that.
And I think that part of that was we were 900,000 short on our projection for
At the nursing home.
the nursing home.
Yes, Mark?
I think it's very important to realize that fund balance is very rarely is there a lot of cash involved in fund balances, and the proof of that is right in front of you. If we had fund balances to the numbers that we think, we wouldn't, like in October of 2015, if it was all in cash, have a negative balance. A lot of these fund balances, and I'd like to find out, I know in towns, there's always a balance of uncollected taxes. I don't know what that is in the county because the towns pay us. So I don't know if there's any town that's in arrearages.
No, everyone's paid.
But if they were, that would be
That'd be up to the
a fund
town.
balance. That would show in the fund balance.
Yes.
They owe it, but it's hard to spend money if someone doesn't pay it. So fund balances, I don't even equate them to cash myself. It's such an elusive thing. And I would explain the January 2015 is you had some encumbrances that were from 2014 that had to be paid in the first month. I mean, I'm not sure that's what happened, but I think that typically happens. You start paying off end of year 2014.
Right, in 15.
Right. I think this is very helpful. You know, I don't know as it alleviates everyone's suspicions about anything, and everyone should continue along the path they're going, but as far as what I see, I think it's, I don't have any concerns that anyone made off with any money. Doesn't mean they haven't, but I don't have any concerns that they have.
Next one, yeah, the $25,000 transfer, I believe it was a deposit on something, one of the projects.
It was to Bonnet Page and Stone.
Yep.
Yep.
And that's in the invoice,
And that's right here.
Is that in our packet?
No, it's right here. It's for $25,000 to Mountain View Nursing Home, the pellet boiler support work. It was a startup invoice that we paid $25,000.
That's just an observation, not gonna be real critical here, but that's a flaw in the original contract. You always wanna have startup and certifications in your contract. You don't want it as a ending invoice. The reason for that is the amount as an ending invoice is going to be higher than if it's included in the original contract, typically.
Can you say that again?
If you take startup of equipment
Yep.
and you put it in your original contract, which is usually done through a bid process, it's going to be lower than when it's an add-on at the end as a change order in the following invoice, where there's really, you know, little opportunity to negotiate or to bid competitively. At that point, your contractor is a monopoly. They can pretty much charge you what they want.
Yeah.
But if you put startups in the contract, it's usually a lower number. Just an observation.
And that completes it.
Any questions, comments? And I believe the 1,100 pages of backup are on the web.
It's on the web. We have a copy downstairs on hard copy. Ed's been kind enough to put it on his website, so it's out there. I mean, anybody can access it. It took a little work for us to get up on ours. We had to cut up into 25, but I think it flows pretty well on it. So
Ed, you had to piece yours too, right?
Yes, I did. It's all over Facebook. It's on 7 different Facebook pages, on 5 Twitter accounts, and in many other different places globally.
So I would say it was probably quite transparent.
I can't force anybody to watch it and look at it.
how's 16 going?
16, as you know, well, as Chuck knows and Ken knows, that we're in progress with a 16 audit. We have made a couple of trips out. We probably need to make one more trip out, I think, to kind of wrap things up. I'm not sure if Alyssa, my manager, has scheduled a day, but certainly I know it's on her radar. But I would have to say it's going pretty well.
Great, thank you.
Very good. You had a comment, Ed?
My last question. While you were going through the procedure, did you access state law to see if the county during that time period was following state law? Or did you only answer the specific questions?
I guess to answer your question is, there were very specific requests that were outlined in the engagement letter, and we focused on those, but certainly my background and my staff's background is such that we are aware of state laws and regulations, and so that if any violation would have been brought to our attention during the process, we certainly would know that, just because of our background. I mean, this is our specialty area. Not only do we, myself, my staff, our firm, specialize in governmental audit and accounting, my particular group audits, I believe, 5, 6 of the New Hampshire counties, so we're very versed in the rules and regulations. I don't know if that answers your question.
It did, so you didn't see any issue with the violation of any law?
No, as far, and again, you know, our responsibility, when you hire us, our responsibility is to report violations of laws, any fraud or anything like that that comes to our attention, internal control weaknesses, and that's part of what we definitely do during a financial statement audit. We certainly would have done the same with this particular engagement.
Can I have a follow-up, please? Commissioner Babson, you would want to hear this also. When Ron Bolio charged us as a county a lot of money to do that audit,
He sure did.
we didn't recover any of that money. Is that correct?
As far as I know, we didn't.
Did Melanson and Heath charge us to re-audit that whole year?
Yes, a
Is
small amount.
that a small amount? I would love to know why we are not going to go after Ron Bolio for that money. I mean, you're talking, it was a lot of money. We haven't recovered any of that.
If the small amount of money that Cheryl's company charged us, at my recollection, Ed, and I'm shooting off the top of my head, was going to be a lot less money than if we had a lawyer to try to retrieve that portion that her company charged us. So you want to just spend it, or do you want to, if it were a huge amount of money, if we were going to go across after the entire money that we paid him, yes, it would have been beneficial, but for the small amount that they charged us to review or redo the work, it wouldn't, and versus the legal fees, it wouldn't have been worth it. What we should do is have the delegation appropriate enough money so that we had a lawyer in our county attorney's office that was an expert on municipal law, and I think that in the long run would save us money.
Madam Chair, follow up. I would suggest that the public should know how much that is, because a perfect storm began as soon as the auditor Ron Bolio came into this room and stated what he found. And if you go back and watch the videotape, it's quite alarming, which added to the perfect storm, which I think has led us here. So I think the public should know how much money Ron Bolio has charged us and how much that loss was. Because I think it's unfair that Melanson and Heath had to absorb that and redo all of that work.
But you know, he did provide a service. The only thing he didn't provide was an opinion, because he said someone mentioned fraud, and that's why he was going to stop. And he wanted to, handcuff us and put our hand behind our back to do a forensic audit. So, you know, he provided a service. He gave us the audit. It showed no opinion, but it did not prevent us from getting a tan. I mean, I don't know
Madam Chair.
what we charge him with.
Madam Chair, what happened in the past was, it wasn't only that somebody mentioned fraud, it was many other things. It was some of the items that were discovered that were happening down in the finance office at the time. So it wasn't just the fraud issue that created that issue. There were other things. There were a lot of things happening in the office that weren't done. He mentioned during the meeting that the books were not even, you're supposed to do your banking once a month. I mean, they weren't doing any of that. So they weren't reconciling the books. So there was a lot of other issues. It's not just the fact that somebody mentioned.
So you want to get the money back from him for what, though?
No.
I don't understand.
Madam Chair, what I'm saying is that the public should just know all the aspects that led us here and be honest about it. Because when he did say that, the bank heard it and added all that up and they had to make a decision. So people just need to know the truth, that's all. That's all I'm saying.
You had a comment?
Well, I like where Representative Comeau is pointing us, because at some point we have to do something to close this episode in the county's history. It's over. Whatever happened, we are going to make sure we do everything that it doesn't happen that way again. But I do think, in light of what we're finding out, which is actually, I don't know, is this the right word, but it's kind of satisfying that we got a grip on it. I think there should be a synopsis, a brief report, a history written, and I don't know who would do it, about the particular things. Perhaps that's something that the delegation can do, or we can do together, to just kind of explain to the public, because even for those of us who follow it, it's hard to keep your eye on what's happened. But as it pertains to this engagement here, this is very enlightening, and I think it does lead us to what Representative Comeau's pointing us to, is closure. It's not over until we explain exactly what's going on. It doesn't have to be a long, flowing report. It can be just some things.
I agree. The year 2014 seemed to be quite controversial. The fact that there's no place actually to lay the blame and collect a reward for the damages done makes it even more complicated. I think some of the insinuations or some of the statements that were made were not substantiated and have not been substantiated. The fact that we were under one accounting system 1.6 million in debt, and under a second accounting system, which I understand to be considered best practice system, we were $254,000 in debt. That's a big difference, along with all of the other chaos, and I don't know of any other phrase to use than chaos, that was involved in the 2014 and part of 2015. I can understand where anyone would be confused and suspicious, etc. A complete statement as to what led up to 2014 and how it became 2015 would probably be very nice. I'm sure Damon would love to print that in his paper. I'm not sure there are enough pages in his paper to print it, though.
They got reams of paper. They can...
Reams of paper. I think in the 1,100 pages, there is a lot of information. You know, to dig that out, you know, you need to be an accountant and an auditor. I think Cheryl's firm has done an excellent job in that. The explanation between enterprise funds and governmental funds, I think you need to have some strong mathematical background to be able to follow some of that. I know when it was unfolding and people were trying to explain it to me, I had to spend a lot of time studying how it was working and how it changed. I myself was very suspicious until I could, you know, kind of get it straightened out. If there is a way to write a nice, concise report that's understandable by the general public, I would definitely be in favor of doing that. I'm not sure there is, but I'm not the expert in that. So, yes, Mark.
Well, I do like to wrap things up with conclusionary statements when possible. So I think what I'm about to say is a conclusionary statement that will help us. It appears to me that I can conclude that this county was never in the whole $1.6 million, even though people responded as though we were. And that created a perfect storm. I would say that that is probably by error by the previous accounting firm to make such a claim. We have just found out, and we can conclude that that was never a reality. It was a perception that we were 1.6 million in the hole. We were 250,000, which is significant enough, but it's far less than 1.6. So I think we can conclude that contrary to what we were told by the previous accounting on an unaudited position, that we were 1.6 million in the hole was not factually accurate. Is that a fair conclusion? Am I wrong?
Depends on the system.
Right, he included in enterprise fund, so in reality, we were, if you're doing it with
No,
having
no.
the enterprise fund and,
It's either 254,000 or it's 1.6. It's not, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The 1.6, taking the whole picture, putting it all together, was not a factual reality. Am I wrong?
I don't, Cheryl, correct me if I'm incorrect. The system that the Bulio Fund used probably validated that number. The system that your company used validated at $254,000.
Yep, it's two different presentations. The 1.6 just includes the general fund, and a big driving factor of that figure is separately reporting of the nursing home. That's the way that 1.6 was derived. The 254 is when you combine them together and you use the same method of accounting, which is the same one that you use for budget purposes. So it's a different method of accounting. Essentially, that's the difference between the negative 1.6 million and the negative 254.
So both were correct in their form. Somewhat correct. They're not audited, but they were, this was audited, but.
The way the restated number, the negative 254, is a more global look at the county, not just a piece of it.
Right.
So,
and that's how we operate.
right.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
Cheryl, perhaps I missed it, but there was a part of this procedure for payments to terminated employees. Did we skip over that, or did we go through that?
We did not talk about that. I believe the request was to,
Prepare a detailed analysis of payments to terminated employees in excess of budgetary salary, including authorizations for 2011 through 2015.
okay, respond on that? Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
is it in there?
Yeah, it's the very last page.
It's not in ours.
No.
Of the summary report. So you're correct. What we did is we obtained
No,
the
no, no.
report of terminated employees between 2011 and 2015, and there were 345 that showed up on the report. Due to the volume of transactions and the amount of work that would be needed to get an understanding of that, we picked a sample of 38 to look at, and we found 10 payments that were made after the termination dates, totaling approximately $18,000, with the largest single payment at approximately $2,800. And based on discussion with county staff, our understanding of the county's legal requirements to have to pay out compensated absences upon termination, we stopped our testing there. Because basically, it answers I think it answers the question. If you look at the last sentence in the report, counties don't typically budget for those final payments, the accrued time, so the accrued sick time that needs to get paid out. However, they are legally responsible to pay that out upon termination, so.
My follow-up question would be then, where does that money actually come from? It just comes from the general fund and you just delete it? And how is it accounted for? Does it show up
it gets charged to the general fund.
And there's a line that says that that money went out.
I don't know if
No,
it's a
it's-
se-
it
it's a
comes out of
separate line.
salaries, out of salaries and out
Yeah.
of,
So you
um,
would exceed your budget figure on a termination, typically. If you're only budgeting current payments and somebody is leaving and they have days accumulated that they're legally entitled to be paid out of, you would pay that and charge it to that line.
6 weeks vacation, 96 hours of sick, and any holidays that they've accumulated. Therefore, we don't hire the next person until that's absorbed, and it may be months before we hire the next person to fill that spot. Or we end up having to transfer money. So,
But it does come out of the salary line.
it does come out, because we don't have a separate line that says, you know, benefit, yeah, accrued time or accrued benefits, or,
It also comes out of associated lines like Medicare and Social Security and retirement that are associated costs with that.
I would suggest that during the delegation meeting, when we need to review the revenues quarterly, that if, there has to be some way to catch to make sure that we're adjusting that number or accounting for that number, so it doesn't come as a surprise.
it's in the expenses. I mean, there's no other way to,
It happens all year long.
it happens all year long.
People cash out. So it's reflected in each month's statement, as each payroll posts, it's reflected there. We don't budget for it because the delegation won't buy that concept of a separate account to pay this out of. So it just gets absorbed.
For instance, when our HR director left, she had some time, it was almost $6,000. You know, when our social worker left, she had a lot of accumulated time. We haven't filled that, spot yet. So
I'm assuming this would not be the time to bring up the incorrect cap.
that's not the right time.
Accruals. Okay, thank you.
Yes,
I don't want to leave you thinking wrong. The conclusion that I state, because I can't see how it could be 1.6 and 254, or 254, that my conclusion that it was never 1.6 is accurate. If no one says I'm wrong, then I'm going to go around and tell everyone that we never were in the whole 1.6. Going once?
Well, I don't want you to say that because
Why?
that's not accurate.
How is it not accurate if we just said something that said when you combine the whole thing, you look at it globally, with 254?
Which is the way we budget and the way we should have always done it.
Yes.
But because the commissioners had an enterprise fund,
I don't care about the enterprise fund, what the other commissioners did, I'm talking about the bottom line thing. It was told that we were $1.6 million in the hole. When we look at it globally, the real picture, it was 254. Is that right?
that's right.
Okay, so
That's
based on that, just based on that.
That's
So it is, we never holistically were 1.6 in the hole. If I'm right on that, I have to be right on the other.
No,
no, it depends on the accounting
Right, it
system
depends
you're
how you-
using.
how you audit it, yeah.
No, I know how auditing works, and I know how it all is supposed to shake down. You get one auditor say we're 1.6 when you use the enterprise fund, and you do it all this way. But if you take the other auditing firm and you put it in holistically, then it's 254.
And if you.
And if we choose that one, then it was never 1.6. We can accept or reject.
Okay,
one.
I'll go with that one.
Okay, so when we accept something as a preferred process, and I prefer the one that Cheryl's bringing up, then I can conclude that we were never 1.6 in the,
You need to qualify that though, Mark, when you tell people, you need to tell them that.
why? It has to be just that simple. Why isn't it just that simple? Chuck, why am I wrong? You know money.
I won't disagree with you.
Good.
Because
I'm right.
I don't agree with the way the former auditor approached anything,
Right.
never mind the accounting basis. So
But if Cheryl were to do, if we had enterprise fund and she had to audit that way, that's the way you would audit.
Well,
Correct.
if we had a real enterprise fund, we might do it
Right,
differently.
well, okay, but that's not what we're talking about. If you want to say, should we ever had an enterprise fund, I'll agree with you there, we never should
We
have.
never
No,
should.
I completely.
Absolutely not.
The nursing home should never have been an audit
Right.
enterprise fund.
So that we agree.
And we are now on the correct path, I believe.
Yes.
Yes, Steve?
So, just to add some more fun to this conversation. So, one auditor said 1.6, but if I recall right, we asked the delegation for, was it 2.1?
Well, that's
2.2.
That's different.
Two separate issues.
So,
Completely
so
separate issues.
that emergency infusion of cash, that was necessary to make payroll a
It
couple
was
years ago.
necessary to run the county because they over budgeted on revenue. So we were short. And if you're $254,000 in the hole on your fund balance, you're in trouble. And where you should be up around 4 or 5 million. So that, yes, the supplemental appropriation was absolutely necessary at that time to bail us out.
So the number could be now 250,000, 1.6, or 2.4.
No. The real number is 254,000.
Yeah.
Then, well, if the number's if the number's 254,000, then
Okay.
why were we asking for 2.5 million?
I'll go
And
with
then-
it.
And
I'll
then
give up.
the other question I have is, are you guys familiar with Schrodinger's cat in particle physics? Something can be simultaneously one thing or another until you open the box. I
Right.
think we have Schrodinger's accounting.
Until we open the box.
Yeah,
And it depends on which end of the box you open.
yeah.
But the real number is 254.
And this number
And if it's
represents,
a real number today, it was a real number in 2014.
and
was.
this number represents the amount of money the county need to have to break even. Well, what was this 204
break even.
represent? I mean, that's the debt, that's the whole?
That's what they started in debt on January 1st.
Okay,
Think of it as your savings account at home. If you're $254 in deficit, you have no savings, you have nothing to draw on.
You're
You
bankrupt.
should have the county should have 4.5 or 5 million to rely on.
Don't get into that one.
all right. So if I understand it, 254,000 represents the deficit in January of 2015?
January 1,
Yeah, okay.
31st, 2014.
At that time,
And it always was that amount. It was just never reported to be that amount.
And then we.
But it was never cash. It was never cash.
Part of the fund balance is cash, part of it is receivables.
But it's not always.
No,
And to get the
not
counties
green stamps.
to fill that hole and also to have a sort of a comfortable operating cash flow, you needed 2.4.
well, look at it this way. You're going into the year, $250,000 in the hole. You still got payroll, you're still paying bills, you still got money going out that you don't have. So that's building up and up and up. And then you may get, an infusion of a TAN, or you may get some revenue at the nursing home, or, and then you get 2014 bills coming due because you gotta pay the electric, the gas, because they're always 30 days after.
So you had a $225 deficit, roughly,
Yeah.
and then you also had bills coming in, and to operate, you needed 2.4 million. You needed what you asked for in the supplemental budget.
Right,
Which was 2.6.
2.6.
but we only got 2.4.
Right. So that was necessary.
Absolutely.
And all
Because the
that
TAN
does
was,
is adjust what you get in December. It adds to the tax base that we collect from the town.
any other questions for Cheryl?
On the 22nd, you'll have only a short amount of time,
Okay.
because I told, because you have to go to Vermont or something, so I told the delegation chairman, so you're on at 9
Okay.
to, I said probably 10 o'clock, you'd have to leave, 10:15.
Okay,
Is that a good
that
time?
works. Yep, they're
Okay.
gonna have this. You have the
Yes,
screen.
yep,
Okay,
we'll be on the screen, we'll do everything. And you can answer as many questions as you can, and then you gotta go, so you gotta go, but
okay, sounds good.
Thank you,
Thank you.
good
I
job.
think you did an awesome job.
Oh, thank you very much.
And I've been playing with these numbers for 4 years, so
Thank you.
Very
thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you, Cheryl, excellent job.
And Cheryl has a parting gift for you on your way out. Oh, you gave her already?
Thank you. The staff will be.
Cookies?
Yeah, she gave me cookies. 'cause
Not
Phil
your
likes
cookies, their cookies, I made them
Oh my
specifically
gosh,
for
be
that.
careful, Cheryl. Cheryl, hurry if you've got a whole box of cookies.
Thank you.
I think that was awesome.
She does a great job. The whole firm does a great job.
All right. Oh my gosh, I lost my agenda.
What about the Hales location school contract?
Okay, Hales
Uh,
location, schools contract, I think, is there any more discussion on that?
Are we waiting for them to sign first?
No, I was gonna say that. We were working on the medical assistants, remember, we had
Yeah.
discussions.
Yeah.
I contacted the attorney, and the way it's written, Hales location is responsible. So I changed it and put the parent legal guardian of the student from Hales location shall be responsible for the payment of all such medical attention. Maybe add in, otherwise not, like if they fall and scrape their knee or something, they get a Band-Aid.
In fact, we were going to wait for Commissioner Hounsell to come in to ask them what they do up at Kennett or the elementary schools when they have an injury.
But they don't have a contract with the whole town.
But it still gives us an idea of what we should be looking at.
What I would say, and this, I just saw this language, that in its totality, paragraph 6 is what we would be doing. In other words, the school, which shall be responsible to determine appropriate medical attention. If it needs to be a Band-Aid, the school nurse put on a Band-Aid. For any student, in a matter consistent with all students.
Okay.
And then that next paragraph, I think, is, next sentence is highlighted in yellow, ties it together, I like it.
That was the one that was changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my language. If you want to add to it, we can.
No, I can't think of anything that's clearer, and I think adding to it would make it confusing.
Okay.
Parent legal guardian of the student from Hales location shall be responsible for the payment for all such medical attention shall be billed accordingly by Freiburg Academy. I think that's exactly what we would find in practice in a public school.
Because I think Hales location would be upset if they have to pay for $100,000 spinal injury or something, you know?
Well, there's no question.
Yeah, I think that does it.
Okay.
Have you run that by Freiburg Academy?
Yes, and, no, I have not. That's up to the superintendent,
We have to
that's
do
not to me.
We gotta do it.
So I changed the date, so all the dates look okay from 2017, because they were like 15 or 16.
Yeah,
And we changed that, number 6. The financial consideration, I changed those dates because it's starting 18,
Yes.
Mr. Superintendent, 18, 19 school year. I mean, they get 9 meals, I think that's pretty good.
Kenny, have we sent this to Frizz?
Yes, I sent it to him.
I know you sent the original, but did you send your sentence?
I did not. He said, when I talked to him, he said, you do whatever you want and send it to Freiburg if they accept it. It's up to Freiburg to accept it, not.
Well, then I make a motion that we send this to Freiburg immediately and get their approval for this or any changes. suggestions that they want to change.
All right, I'll second that.
Okay, it's been a discussion? Okay, it's been motioned and seconded that we send this letter to Freiburg for approval or additions or corrections.
With a request that if they approve it, they send a signed one back.
Yes, sir.
Or two originals, one for them, one for us.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, so there it goes.
So I'll do that.
So we're ready for the yellow folder? You're just a crooked.
I have an insurance certificate of liability from the Rowley Agency to Hale's location. It just came in the mail, I thought you guys might want to see it.
For what?
I don't liability, I'm not sure what it's for.
Oh, it's for not covering a claim or anything.
No,
It
it's,
just said that, it's just a certificate that says that they have insurance.
Well, we should send that up to
Let me just see this.
Kathy, should we put in the records? Keep a record for ourselves?
Yeah, this is a certificate that Kathy should have in her file.
No.
You should keep a copy.
No.
Okay,
Basically.
so you
proof that
want
we
to
have
do
it.
that, keep a copy
Field
for us and send this up to Kathy?
if that's what the board wants, yeah? I
Take
guess we can do it.
take a photocopy of it and send it up.
Okay.
What happened to Bert Weiss? Did he get back with us with figures or something?
I think what we did, if I recall, is we expressed in an email, and Chuck expressed that we're gonna go a different direction with insurance.
The board instructed me to send him a, we did it in another session, but to send him a note saying that we were satisfied with, no, we were going into another direction with our insurance needs.
Oh, must have been when I was here. Okay.
No, you were here.
You were here.
Missed it.
That's it for yellow folder. I do have a non-public minute to go over when we go to non-public.
Okay, but I have something here.
Yeah, that's in my update.
Oh, okay, sorry. So are we ready for the commissioners, for the administrators update?
Yes. Next Wednesday, Commissioner Bevard and myself and Cheryl will not be here. So I'd like to cancel next week.
Oh, you don't trust the two of us?
Well, if you guys want to do a meeting, go ahead.
No, I'm just, no, that's fine.
We'll be gone
Job on the
Wednesday, Thursday.
We did a lot done, didn't we?
Well, Mr. Babson's been here when we were just commissioners, so I'm sure he could run it if you want.
We could
Run
do
it, I hold the record.
Yeah, by about 15 minutes.
So we're not meeting next week?
If that's the board's wishes.
Well, there's no sense of meeting if Judy not here, what are we gonna do? Eat
Well, then you
cookies?
had to take minutes too, because she's not here.
We'd have to eat cookies and take minutes.
I don't think you'd have any cookies.
Right.
Oh, she was doing her job, really doing her job, she'd bring him in on duty. And,
Within the day old.
well, they put her in the microwave, get it softened up.
So is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
Cancel next week? Okay. The phone update. Everyone's got new phones except the sheriff. Wayne is he's in the design phase of the sheriff. So everything seems to be going smoothly, swimmingly. I really like them. They save a lot of time, actually. The registered deeds you got theirs last night, so they went live this morning. So, the propane tank was fixed. Remember, it happened last month that they put a new shutoff closer to the vaporizers. So that'll save us some time if that ever happens again, which I don't think it will. And the generators are going through their load test this week. They've all been fixed. The annex is going through a new fuel pump rebuild, and that takes a week. So it should be back online, I'm hoping Friday. It's been offline for a week, so we're just praying we don't lose power.
What happens if we did, when that's down?
We'd have to shut the jail water down, and then we'd have to call a septic pump guy to come pump the tanks about every couple of days.
Yeah.
We experienced that last summer, and we turned the water off from the jail, which they don't like, to slow, because that's our heavy user.
Yeah.
And we had our septic guy come down and pump the tank, and then come back again and pump it again.
So it's pricey.
Do we have
Yeah.
the set up so that we could rent a generator on a trailer and come in and plug it in and be off and running in another hour?
Will has talked to our company, and they will do that, but it's 4 hours, it's not an hour. So we'd have to wait 4 hours at the
Well,
minimum.
4 hours is better than 2 days.
Well, yeah.
But are we set up to go online? Can we plug into the system somewhere? or do
I'm
we have
sure,
to-
I'm sure they do, because they come in with another generator and plug it into ours. But I'll have to check with Will to make sure. I'm trying to figure in my head how it's hooked up.
And when they come for this, they have to load test it. They're gonna bring it in,
Which they're doing this week.
the load comes in on a trailer.
Right. They're doing the nursing home today, I think. So it's a 4-hour test under a full load.
And what's it show? Amperage or current or
I don't know.
voltage?
I don't know, I'm not an electric guy, I don't know. I guess it shows that it can take a full load.
Still function.
Yeah.
Because it's never had a full load, it's my understanding.
I don't think so. Next Tuesday is the Mount Washington Valley Leadership Team coming down. There's 21 of them. They'll be here at 9 o'clock. And I've met with all the department heads of the buildings, and the elected officials, the sheriff, the register of deeds, setting up the agenda, the itinerary, and have it done by Friday. I'll send it off to Aaron Wright. Do you know Aaron Wright? Yeah. She'll be coming down. And there's 21 of them. We'll be going through this building, dispatch, the register of deeds, nursing home, the jail, and the farm. They want to see the wood operation and the blueberry bushes, whatever.
Who's going to speak to them about the commissioners?
I was hoping one of you would be here, or all three, it doesn't matter.
I guess I have a previous engagement.
You get picked up?
Shouldn't have signed up for that.
No, I signed up for a 2-day class that apparently is now going to be 3. Just because I'm an overachiever. So Mr. Babson is down, so I'll have to leave it up to you two commissioners to deal with the students.
So if one of you can be here like around 9:30, I guess. And that's all I have.
A couple of questions. On your phones, what do they do with the old phones?
Good question. I don't know. I think Bob has them. I'm not sure what he's doing with them.
Because although they were old and some didn't work, some did work.
Well, they all worked.
Do we have a,
Yes.
do we have a policy on disposing of equipment? and
Yes.
assets?
Yes.
I don't,
Yeah,
we
we
don't.
do. Everything, before any county property gets disposed, it comes to me. And then
So
I.
you're
get
the
what-
policy.
No, yeah, I get with you guys to make sure that's what you want
Right.
to happen. 'Cause
Right.
only the commissioners can get rid of property.
Is there some way to recycle those funds?
I'm not sure if Wayne bought them back or I'm not sure.
Well, let's
So I
go
gotta
one
check.
step farther since we're all here. Let's say he didn't buy them back. Can we put them on Craigslist or can we put them on eBay or,
Yeah, that's right.
and try to sell them rather than take them to the Ossipee dump and pay to get rid of them?
Whatever you guys wanna do.
Yeah,
Yes.
why don't we find out what we have, first of all, and where they are and who owns them? If it's part of the deal that they get them for, I don't know.
That's what I wasn't sure.
Let's find out the status of what they are, how many they are, and then maybe some recommendations on how we could put them on Craigslist or someplace, and check to make sure. I think if it's real property, we have to go through the delegation, but this isn't, real estate.
Right, it's real estate.
But this, I was also thinking that there are probably nonprofits that might use some extra funds, but anyways.
Well,
The
figure
other-
out what we have and figure out what the value is.
Okay.
On the propane tank fix,
The what?
the propane tank fix,
Okay.
did we get a report as to what actually happened and why it happened?
Yep. Bob and I met with them about a month ago, and there's a nut on where the driver, they hooked the line up to a valve and they screw it in and then they pull the lever and that lets the gas into the big tank. And they said that, he always tightens it, but because it's cold and warm over the winter, sometimes it shrinks and it loosens. Apparently it shrunk and loosened and it started leaking out of the tank. It's never happened before, and they can't explain why it happened.
Things happen.
But yeah, it happens, it's a mechanical thing. So they put some thread lock on it and really ramped it down. And the driver from now on will tighten it every time he comes, he will tighten it, because he has a wrench with him. And they installed a shut-off valve now that shuts the gas off at the vaporizer as opposed to the tank. Because from the tank, there's still a line that goes to the vaporizer, and that still takes time for it to burn all out. So this way it shuts it off at the vaporizer, so nothing gets into the vaporizer.
How much gas do they believe we lost?
They said about 10 gallons.
Oh,
So,
that's a lot.
yeah. Yeah.
So Ken, why,
But
if
that's
this
a
thing has
discrepancy.
such a large coefficient of expansion between the hot and the cold, why isn't it their policy to tighten it up every time they come here, which is
It is
twice a month?
their policy.
It is now, but why?
They said it always was their policy.
Well, then I hope we're not paying for any services if they're supposed to have been doing it and they weren't.
We did not pay for any of that. That was all on them.
Did they reimburse us for the 10 gallon?
No.
Well,
Because I thought it was a lot more.
What's that, $13?
Not even.
Not even.
I said it with a smile.
Oh, okay.
And that's it.
All right, do we have any commissioner updates?
I do.
Yes, sir.
I am very happy to report to the two of you that the Commissioner of Transportation, Victoria Sheehan, attended a work session, what was billed as a work session at the Diana's Baths in Conway about the parking that you're familiar with. Dave Weathers and Earl Sayers had set this up with the Commissioner as a work session. And it was well attended. Bartlett Selectmen, Gene Chandler and John Hebert were both there. Joe Kenny, Executive Counselor, came. Conway Selectmen, Dave Weathers, Mary Seavey, and of course Earl Sayers and his Public Works people. The Commissioner had the Assistant Commissioner, Bill Cass, and also Bill Bill, you got his name now, but another official. And they made it a work session, and they walked it. They met with a number of the neighbors. There were people from Bartlett who lived down the road who were quite concerned, and they came and voiced their experiences. And I was very happy that the commissioner quickly saw that this was an opportunity to address it from a safety perspective. And it was just good to see it all work out. They've agreed to, the state is going to post both sides of the road with the appropriate signage.
Babson also.
It's gonna say, no parking, tow zone. And then, I was talking with Selectman Thibodeau this morning, and although they haven't yet raised the fine, the town, they're going to raise the fine, because now if you get a no parking ticket, it's $10. Well, that's cheaper than going into the parking. It's a nothing expense. The commission, the selectmen will probably raise that substantially, maybe even as much up to $100. That plus the hook, and the police chief was there as well, Ed Wagner. They're going to enforce it. That should remedy the situation, and I couldn't be more happy. And I'd like if you two would be so inclined. I think where we sent a letter to the commissioner expressing our concern and support, that we should send a letter thanking the commissioner. I took the liberties of drafting something, if I could.
May I ask you one question? Are they also going to post the Bartlett sign?
Yes, both Bartlett and Com. I don't know the exact distance, but it's something like, I'm gonna say 1,600 feet, but it may be more than that on both sides of the road. It's fixed. But if I could, I'd like to, dear Commissioner Sheehan, we commend you and your department for the time spent assessing the traffic situation at Diana's Bass. We appreciate that New Hampshire DOT will be furnishing and installing the appropriate no parking signage on both sides of the road. It is satisfying that the administration and the department places the highest priorities of safety by your uncompromising position to provide safe passage to the traveling public. Sincerely, Commissioners, Carroll County. If we'd like, I'd like to have a letter of this sort go. The other thing I wanted, before I forget, is Governor Sununu also sent one of his aides to stay on top of it. And his presence, I think, was extremely helpful. And that person happened to be our very own Harold Parker. And so it was kind of funny, because I mentioned to the commissioner that they had the unanimous agreement of the Bartlett selectmen, the Conway selectmen, the Carroll County Commissioners. And Gene Chandler said, "You better move quick, because that don't usually hold." You know, but it was a very positive and actually satisfying result.
In your letter, could you add signage on the road in both Conway and Bartlett? Because I think people have a tendency not to realize that.
In both.
How'd you miss getting your picture in the paper with this article?
Well, I noticed that,
I can't tell you all my secret.
I noticed that the Conway Sun has a new photographer too, so.
No.
Yeah.
With Dave Weathers and our very
Yeah.
own commissioner that worked so hard on it, left out.
Well, he wasn't left out, he
Got his name.
got a statement in there.
No, it isn't about that. What we did, and this, if I might, what we did with this issue is we did not accept the answer that we were getting from the Department of Transportation that they were going to drag their feet. And I think what we should be acknowledging, regardless of which one of us did it, is that working together with our local towns, we can get satisfaction from the state. And, you know, I don't apologize that I was there and took a picture. What I do is I thank you two for your help, because the impact of the county commissioners joining with two of our towns on a very, very important safety issue, it bore fruit. And I like that, and I do think for future things, it's important for us to thank the commissioner.
I think you're right.
So,
What's gonna happen with the Diana's bath is a federal thing. What are they gonna do? They're gonna have fewer people there because people aren't gonna take the chance on,
unfortunately, the other thing's gonna happen. And what
that?
is happening, they're ruining the site.
Yeah.
There's so much human traffic that people who appreciate the site, locals, we don't go. I haven't been to Diana's Baths in 6-7 years.
would you fit still?
Huh?
Would you fit in one still?
I could get up there. The problem is gonna get back down. The thing is you go up there, there's pizza bar, there's McDonald's wrappers, there's dirty diapers, and what they were doing along the road, you know, by Lucy's.
Dumping
They were
this
just
stuff.
throwing the garbage out on the road, and, you know, it's like, why do you come to a pristine area
Yeah.
like the White Mountains of New Hampshire and just trash it? And yet they do, so, but I think this is a big problem. I quite frankly think that the National Forest Service, White Mountain National Forest, the federal government, does a very poor job in protecting key areas. You know, they'll make a big to-do about, oh, you can't take trail bikes out into the forest, you can't cut this tree, you can't do that. But they'll allow them to trash the Swift River and Lower Falls and Rocky Gorge and Blueberry Crossing, and it's like a carnival. And I don't think it's supposed to be that way, but I don't know how the
And it's
feds
the
do it.
people, if you put containers out there,
They
they'll
don't-
bring never mind what they brought in and they'll take out, they'll
I-
take it out of their car and put it in the,
I've never been too impressed with the operation of the Forest Service as it pertains to getting along with towns in the county. They give, you know, a pittance in financial support, but they make quite a demand on services. You know, the Conway Fire Department Conway Village sends its ambulance up into, well, they've gone as far as Livermore Falls. Yeah. Because, you know, guys that work on fire trucks and ambulances, they don't worry about political borders when they're doing service. But do we get any satisfactions or even a thank you from the feds? Nope, doesn't happen. Doesn't
sort
happen.
of like the Ossipee Village Fire Precinct and
No,
the
but,
safety issue.
but because of your hard work, you're helping them. But anyway,
You're right.
that's another discussion, but,
And nobody's gonna sell them land to use for parking up there.
well, and that's the other thing, they said, well, we're restricted, we can't enlarge our parking anymore. Wasn't a problem when they decided that they were gonna take Hank Hubbell's airport in the 60s and all that land in the 60s to build the Kancamagus Highway. The federal government didn't ask that they were gonna take that land. They went up to Hank Hubble and said, here's $500 for your land, and that's it. It isn't a take it or leave it, it's leave it, if you wanna take the money you can, but we're taking your land. So when they say that they can't expand I guess they don't know American histories, they took the whole Sioux Nation, you know, and have a whole reservation. So, I don't believe everything the feds tell me. But anyway, that's my
We
rant for the
agree on
day.
something.
That's my rant for the day.
I forgot I do have two more things. One, May 5th, the Association of Counties Executive Meeting has been canceled for Friday.
Oh.
And in your packet, you have the North Country Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Committee on Friday, May 12th from 10 to noon. That's on the large greenhouse. It's at the Gorham Town Hall. We had talked about it with Steve.
If we're gonna go, can we put in the dibs for the company car?
Unfortunately, I won't be able to go that day. I have a prior commitment, but you guys certainly can.
You wanted to go also, didn't you, Mark?
You're gonna go, it's right up in your, North Country, you
I
got.
was doing this, I wouldn't even listen to Ken, I'm sorry. We're
Sort of like
going,
somebody else we saw here in the last couple of
yeah,
weeks.
you ran him back to Ohio too. What are you, what are you talking about?
Going to Gorham for the
No, I'm
tour
not
and
doing that.
conversation
No,
of the greenhouse.
no, I'm not going.
You might learn something.
I might, but
Apply
I,
to
but I,
the wind tunnel out here,
I,
the farm, might change your opinion.
yeah. You come and tell me what to say, because I've got my mother-in-law's memorial service that day, and I have to go to that.
That would.
That would trump
It's
the
not a lack of interest, it's a lack of availability.
availability. Does anyone know Josh Arnold
Yes,
from the gala?
yes.
He's interested in looking at the old nursing home.
To do what?
As you've seen, this week's Independent Gala is exploring facilities to run a makerspace.
What?
Makerspace, I don't know. I have ruled out the farm buildings as an option, but I'm curious about the old nursing home. We're working on a grant from Northern Borders Regional Commission, and if successful, could use some of those funds for necessary renovations for intended use. I don't know, I mean, are you guys interested in
Well, you know,
doing that, leasing that out again?
if you show it to them, or have Bob show it to them, whether they might be interested or not, they have a lot of associations with different community activities and things, and they might just, if they don't want it, they might pass it on to somebody that might.
Well, I mean, is that the board's, I mean, is that what you guys want to do? Rent it
I don't
out?
see any harm in showing it to them, you might stumble on one, but the cost to fix it, to get the asbestos out of it is gonna eliminate 99.9% of the people that wanna use it.
So is that a yes from you guys, or
I'd say show it.
one,
Yes.
two?
I don't know why we have the annex anyways, yeah, if someone's got an interest that we can do something with it,
Okay.
then run it up the flagpole, if no one salutes it, bring it back down.
That's all I have.
All right. Gentlemen, any other commissioner updates? There is one thing that I read, and I was really concerned, and I just wanted to get the other commissioners' opinions. Not that I want to micromanage in any way, but then you mentioned it again today. As we all know, prisoners in the jail do not behave well. And apparently in some jail, they were flooding everything, not ours. This was way out, someplace else. And as a result, it's normal punishment to shut off the water to the toilet systems. And occasionally, I guess at this one place anyways, they shut the water off to the actual cell.
Mhm.
And a prisoner died after 7 days with no water. So, I don't know, I haven't spoken with Jason, but I was kind of thinking that I know it would be difficult, and we know that our people have a hard time when they don't behave well. But if, I think shutting off water, I consider cruel and unusual punishment. And then you had spoken that we had to shut the water off for 2 days over there.
Well, it wasn't 2 days, it was overnight.
But overnight. So I was just wondering how the other commissioners felt.
We have a procedure in place. I suggest that you look at the procedure before you bring it up for any vote or anything.
Well, no, I was no vote. I just wanted to get their kind of feedback, because I was going to go and
Well, why don't you have Jason come in next week and explain
The
the
procedure?
procedure? That way.
that would be very nice.
I can tell her my opinion
Okay.
right now. We hired Jason to do a good job. He's proven to be an outstanding superintendent. And until he screws up and tells me, and we know we have to get rid of him, he's the boss. If he comes in here and says, shut the water off, we shut the water off. If he says everything's fine, we leave it on. I'm gonna leave it up to him.
I'll give you my opinion. It's another reason why everyone should do everything they can to avoid going to prison.
Okay.
Oh, I did have one more thing, I'm sorry, Madam Chairman, I did have one thing.
How about shutting the water off at Diana's Baths?
Yeah. We were talking earlier about payments from the towns, and they pay usually in December. And I guess by law, that's that's the latest that they have to pay. But I think by practice, there's a certain unspoken obligation that when they get paid, we should get our share. And so I know that the town of Conway, they do twice a year billing. So I'd like to have them to do twice a year paying. So I was wondering if we might have a letter drafted to the town of Conway and any other town that pays twice a year, requesting that they make those payments when they get paid, that they make, if they're doing their 50% billing in June, that they send that portion to us. That would reduce our need on TANs. They can come back and say, no, we're going to do it in December because they have the law on their side. But I think also, in talking with some people up in Conway, they see the rightness of it. So I think we should take a leadership role and draft a letter to those towns, asking them to please pay twice a year.
Mark, you said, the law says when they get paid. Does the law say when, December 17th, or when they get paid, or does it say December 17th?
I think it says by December.
I think it does too.
I don't think it says anything about when they get paid.
But I think we should initiate some kind of a movement, try to get them to pay. It's ridiculous that we have to put the
Borrow
TAN
money on money that they're holding that's ours. It's not quite right. I mean, someone's gonna pay the TANs. I mean, if they have to borrow money to pay us, that's their cash flow things, but they don't pay us, we're borrowing money, then the county is paying.
Right, you're right.
I do believe the statement's been made that if when the towns borrow money, they have to pay more interest than we do as a county.
I don't know, is that accurate?
But
I
that
well,
statement has been made.
I know I've sat in on awarding contracts for TANs as a selectman, and it varies, and I think actually their rates were lower than the ones we got of recent years, but I'm not sure. But no, every bank's different, every organization's different. I don't know how they...
I mean, we've seen it ourselves, we've been out for TANs and we get a different rate, so why wouldn't the towns?
Right. But I think a lot of it comes down to who your financial person is. I know Lily Gilligan does an excellent job up in Conway, working to get not only the best rate, but holding off paying until she absolutely has to, and not sitting a long time when people owe money. They work very close with the tax collector, and it's pretty good, but it does, a lot of it rests with your financial people. So anyway, I'd like to make that in the form of the motion that we have Ken draft a letter of requesting that they make these twice a year payments.
Of all towns?
Of the towns that collect every 2 years. I think some towns, the smaller towns, they only do once a year billing.
Do you know, Ken?
I know Molten Borough does it twice a year, and they're gonna balk at that, because they use that money for their own,
Yeah, they're using our money for their use. I can understand them balking, but at the same time, I think it might give them pause to consider that by them holding back money is costing us money. And if they don't, then they don't. No work, harm in asking. That's right.
Commissioner Hounsell would understand this better than you because he's been in the system. Maybe the thing to do is to tell our state representative that's sitting here that we need a legislative change that states if you bill biannually, Then the first date that you pay the county is August 17th, and the second date is December 17th, or however you want to set it up. I know it's too late now, but you can go to the Senate because they have no rules that you can put your finger on. And have a move and start there.
I think I thought of it that way too, and then said, well, let's not do that on the first move. Let's see if they would see the rightness of it without a law, and if they balk at that, then change the law, because I think the moral argument's on our side, and I think if we write a letter requesting, these selectmen, they're good people, they're gonna look at it and say, fair is fair.
How are you gonna state it though, Mark? You're gonna say we are contemplating requesting that you pay twice a year, or are you gonna say, how would you feel if the commissioners made a move to collect twice a year?
I think what we should do is request that they pay twice a year, because they can. They just choose not to because they don't have to. But request that they do, and do it based on, we could put a rationale, a little sentence on why we want them to do it, but it's like, if I owed you money, and I said, okay, I'm gonna pay you by December. I owe you so much money, I'm gonna pay you December when it comes in. But then in June, half the money that I owe you come in. I don't think it's right myself for me to keep that half, because that's not my money, it's your money. And even though it's not December, I should go up to it and say, David,
Right, I agree with you, I just,
so I'd like,
how you phrase it.
I'd phrase it that way. I'd simply ask them, and I believe that they'll do it. And if they don't, then we can go to Ed and ask him what he thinks about it. But I think it's just a fair way to do it.
I agree with Mark. I think we should do what we can do first before we go making new laws. I think we have way too many laws, and I don't think we need any more. That's my opinion.
But I know, like in town of Conway, they can do it. I've already talked with them about it. They're the biggest town in the county. They can do it. It's just a matter of them planning their cash flow.
So the motion, are we ready? Any more discussion?
I just want to know how if we all agree that we say request that you pay twice a year, or we ask them if they're willing to pay twice a year.
No, I wouldn't ask them if they will. I'd request that they do. And if they say no, we won't, then we know they're not willing. Or if they say yes, we will, then we know they're willing. So I think what we should do is just request. Maybe Ken can bring us in a letter, a draft. We can go over it. We don't have to do it in the next 5 minutes.
The other thing is, if we're going to do that, do we need to write it for next year because the budgets have been set?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go along with that.
Yeah, I don't think we necessarily should put that type of pressure on for this year. I don't want to be
Well,
disruptive.
it's too late for this year.
Yeah, they get their plans laid out, but
We don't need a motion to get the letter written, do we?
We all agree.
Ken's not listening to you.
Yes, I am. Yeah. No, I'll do it.
Okay. No, I don't think we need a letter.
Anything else?
Did we vote on this letter, though, for the DOT? We're gonna have
We
a
need
draft?
to vote on that?
You did not vote on it. Well, if you're signing it, I would vote on it, because what if all of you don't agree on it?
Well, what I'd like to do is have it prepared, well, we're not coming back next week. I don't want to sit a long time.
No, the proper thing to do is get it out in the next 2 or 3 days.
Can I read it again
Yeah, go ahead.
and I'll give you what I've read, Joe. We commend you, dear Commissioner Sheehan, we commend you and your department for the time spent assessing the traffic situation at Diana's Baths. We appreciate that the New Hampshire DOT will be furnishing and installing the appropriate no parking signage on both sides of the road in both the towns of Bartlett and Conway. It is satisfying that the administration and the department places the highest priority on safety as reflected by your upcoming, by your uncompromising position to provide safe passage to the traveling public. Sincerely, us.
The only change I'd make, Mark, you put in the first sentence,
Yeah.
the traffic problem at Diana's Bath, it's a parking problem, isn't it?
Well, it's a traffic parking problem because the cars are parked there, the traffic can't get through. You wanna put traffic parking?
So as you would say, it's gotta be one or the other. I'd say parking.
I think it's both, but parking? Parking.
Could we say highway problem?
No, we'll use it parking. Because it is parking. It's a better word.
Okay,
I make a motion that we accept it. We'll get it done and have it come back. Well, no, how are we gonna do this? We wanna get it out in a few days. Can you send us a copy? Is that
well,
legal?
you guys are signing checks, maybe Cheryl could get it written and signed today.
Ooh, that would work.
That would work. The other thing is, I guess, Cheryl, is we want to CC all the people we previously CC'd on a first letter,
Okay.
so that they see that we're wrapping this up, all the reps and the,
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded to send this letter to the Commissioner of
transportation.
Transportation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Well, we do. You want to talk about the Ossipee water precinct? You don't want to give $200? You don't want to give them back the $200?
I thought we already decided that.
Ken, did we decide, did you talk with the Ossipee Fire Department?
I did.
He did, I did not.
Did we make a motion to forego the
No.
$200 that they pay for water?
No, you were gonna wait until you talk to the chief.
I did. And they would appreciate it. I'll make a motion that we not cancel,
Rescind,
help me,
avoid.
that we do not build a Ossipee Village fire precinct for water usage.
Did we do that last time?
Yeah.
No, we
I
talked
thought
about it,
we
he was
talked-
going
I
to
thought
talk,
we did, but
he didn't want to do it until he talked to the chief.
Oh, and he was gonna do something about letting his people know
And
not
he's,
to wash their cars.
yes,
He's gonna police it.
yes. And he's also going to give us, I don't know how you go about a pilot, but he is going to give us, I told him not to rush because it won't come up until the next budget cycle, but he's going to give us a suggested pilot donation, or whatever you call them.
So I second your motion.
All those in favor of not billing the Ossipee Corner Fire Precinct for water, say aye.
Aye?
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, so Ossipee Fire Department. You're in charge of that, right, Cheryl? All right. Any other commissioner updates? All right, I believe we have a non-public. David, would you like to take
Yep.
us there?
You gonna do any public input?
Oh, public input, sorry. Yes, sir.
Just very quickly, I would like to tell you how much I appreciate the new color on the wall. I think it's a very good backdrop, and I wanted to know who actually chose the color.
The county attorney and I did it
Good
together.
job. Did you paint it?
She painted it and I put the pictures up.
Okay, well, that should be noted.
Thank you.
I also wanted to note the fact that your administrative assistant, she went out of her way to use her own time and effort to get the thumb drives to have the data on it for the AUP, and I think that's notable that she did that on her own, because I don't know, she wasn't paid for the thumb drives. I believe you got them from someone,
Mhm.
and I think that should be noted somewhere. And I'm hoping that either during the annual report or a combined report between the commissioners and the delegation could occur that could show the public an accurate timeline of what's occurred over the years to the county. And I'm hoping that could be a bound book that could be in the library, so there could never be any questions about what's occurred for the past 7 years. We cannot just keep returning to it. We should be honest, tell the public what happened. I don't like the fact that the public is gonna walk around questioning whatever happened up in Carroll County. That shouldn't hang over us. As elected officials, we should clear the air the truth, and move on.
I agree.
And I'm hoping this will occur quickly, because in the meeting here today, you've noticed that even the reporter had trouble deciphering exactly what happened. Well, by the time this information gets digested out in the public, they're still gonna have a lot of questions, so we need to have a reference book. And the reference book is also good because after we're not elected anymore, the next phase should not forget what happened.
Right.
And it also could help with, the delegation talked years ago about having a delegation handbook, which we still don't have. Just as we should work together with the grant review process, because the process goes through commissioners, the department head commissioners, all the way up to the delegation, we should all actually work together on a book of responsibilities to help the continuation to the future of how we all operate, so we don't repeat what happened in the past.
Thank you, Ed. You had a comment, sir?
I don't want to just stop with Ed making that comment, I want to kind of join with him on this. I've often thought the continuity of government is lacking because we don't always pass on things, experiences, history, procedures, rules, expectations. I see that on the school board. People come in, they're working off assumptions, and it takes them 6 to 8 months to find out that half of those aren't even right. Where if you had something more solid. On the matter of this recent history, I would be very interested in joining with Ed or anyone else from the delegation in co-authoring this historical incident. And the reason I think I would be good at it is I wasn't here. I've observed from outside, and now that I'm here, I would like to also be part of explaining it. Explaining it not in a finger-pointing way, but just these are the type of things that can happen and did happen, and we should try to avoid these things. So sort of along those lines, that would be what I would see the lasting purpose of it. And to put this into a book, and perhaps put copies in various public libraries. I know that up in Conway, there's a repository of similar type of actions, and I think that helps the future generation. One thing about lessons learned that you want to maintain is the lesson that you learned, and you can forget if you don't record these things.
I think it should go back to the beginning of the nursing home, the beginning. And all the occurrences that happened up until the 2016, actually, probably.
So I'd be interested in a joint, and I think it's politically very wise, and not only is it administratively right, and it's a good way to bring closure, politically it's right, where once again we see the commissioners and the delegation working closer together as a team, and I think that's only to our mutual benefits. So I'd be interested in joining you on that, Ed.
Would you like to be one of those authors?
I've always been here. So I've been here for 7 years watching it, so we have many resources to help with that. And what this will also do is provide for good government oversight.
because I think because you were here every day, really, and you weren't here at all,
Right,
that would be a kind of a nice mix.
but it is sort of what drew
And
me.
David was here also through the whole.
I'm having nothing to do with it. I got a vote of no confidence. They didn't want me then, and they won't want to read anything I put down now. So I'm out of it. I won't even vote on it.
And I think that this is another reason it's important, because I think there's a healing aspect to it. There were some things that I have observed, and the reason I'm here in part is because of all of this. It got my attention. But the thing is this was done in a way that has left hard feelings, bad feelings. Those aren't good for people. No one should go through life carrying the burden of a hard feeling, a hurt feeling. People were unjustly criticized to a form that I believe crossed the lines in certain instances. But I think a report like this, with Ed who's been here, myself who hasn't been here, I think it would actually serve to, if I may, David, to kind of ease that pain that still remains. It comes up enough with Commissioner Babson so that it needs to be dealt with. And I want David not to carry the burden of the insults. So I think this is a healing effort.
Should we make a motion and vote on that?
Well, I think what we should say is I think if it's not a joint effort, then that shouldn't, we shouldn't do it on ourselves. I think I would make a motion at this time that the commissioners will, if the delegation's interested in drafting a closure report on the incidents leading up to, I don't even know what to call it.
Yeah, I think if you just call it the nursing home, the new nursing home or something, because that's where it
I think
started and that's where everybody seems to pile the stuff.
I think it's more
It's
than
not,
that.
oh, it is more than that, but I'm just saying that that's where everyone seems to put the pile. It's like, well, the bond with the nursing home, that always seems to be where they want to start, and they're still trying to work with that, so, what is it they do? At all,
Yeah, at all.
the nursing home at all.
The other thing is I guess the way that we want to proceed is if you can get the support, a vote of support from the delegation to do this, we would be inclined to join you. I guess that's probably the better way to do it. Find out if anyone in the delegation is in agreement with you. I'm sure they would be.
They are.
So, this.
I think it would have to be the majority.
So how would you like us to proceed? What's your recommendation that we should do?
Committee formed, voluntary ad hoc committee, just
Okay.
to come together and put
Okay.
it together. And with help, the reporters that have been reporting here for years could also be a part of it, because they can report on what happens in the meeting,
Sure.
but they're not gonna go and create a timeline. They're not gonna do that. They'll report on the timeline, but perhaps they can be brought in with their institutional knowledge. It's gonna take leadership to do this, because there will be times when people are gonna wanna go right back to the way it was, where people are getting blamed, but it just has to be aired out. So the committee will have to have good leadership on both sides.
May I make a motion that we appoint Commissioner Hounsell to join with appointees from the delegation on an ad hoc committee to write
A conclusionary
summary.
report.
I'm not a summary, a complete report.
A conclusionary report.
Of the nursing home, the new nursing home construction et al. How's that? The new nursing
How about
home
if
et al.
we form a joint committee? First of all, it wants to be an ad hoc joint committee. So, to create a conclusionary report over the fiscal fiscal malaise that took place between 2006
Well, you don't,
to 2015.
I don't know if you want to use the word
It
malaise,
sure as heck was a malaise.
Madam Chair,
maybe the financial experience.
Madam Chair, I don't know if this requires a motion now, only because this was a brainstorm.
I was gonna say, I wouldn't make a motion.
And I would approach, in the delegation meeting, I would approach the idea
Okay.
and do it then.
Would you
That's
two
that.
be willing to present that to the delegation
I
when we
would
meet in
love to
May?
work with Ed on this. I think we could do this, and I do think Damon would be an essential member, as will others. But basically, I think if Ed and I tackle this, we can lead it and bring you back something.
I would like to know who you choose as your group.
I don't think it would be so much a group as it be a list of resources, because, you know, a lot of it's gonna be gathering stuff and then putting it into something to present. I would say resources are gonna be everyone from beginning to the end, whoever has information.
Madam Chair, the main purpose, or the main goal of this document would be that no longer should these issues be used as a political
Right.
tool. If somebody tries to, I would like to open the book and say, this is not what happened. This is what happened. You know, so there's a reference to
Oh,
it.
I
So it
would
cannot
love-
be used as a political tool.
Right.
I would love to close the book and move forward, so.
You gotta write the book
If
before
you
you
gotta
can
write
close
the
it.
book to close it,
Right.
Because the
then let's do
public,
it.
because people in the public will try to reinvent what happened. We've
Right.
seen this happen before, and we just keep doing it and nothing gets done, so I think.
I'm with you, Ed, I think it's a great idea.
All right, then, is it all right with you if we let those two gentlemen lead off?
I'm abstaining, you can do whatever you want.
All right, any other discussion? Any other public input? If not, then would you like to read us into non-public?
Certainly would. Make a motion, we go into non-public session, 1, RSA 91A3, parentheses E, consideration of a pending litigation which has been threatened in writing or filed against a public body or any subdivision thereof until the claim has been fully adjudicated or otherwise settled. And session 2, under 91A32, parentheses B, the hiring of any person as a public employee.
Second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Hounsell,
Yes.
Commissioner Babson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bevard.
Yes. Ken, how long is this going to take?
We'll have nothing after this, so if he wants to pack up, because then we got union stuff right after, so.
Tell me when you're meeting today.
Okay, we'll take a recess, 5 minutes, John?